Was that you?
Right.
Turn your.
Calling this meeting to order. Everybody rise as able for the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting on November 25, 2024 was included in a listed meeting notice sent to the Hunterdon County Democrat and Courier News on January 3, 2024, posted on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, and on that date, and then continuously posted as required. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the Borough Clerk. Can I have a roll call, please, Carla?
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Here.
Councilwoman Fasora.
Here.
Councilman Levitt,
Here.
Council President Long,
Here.
Councilman Parker is absent. Council Vice President Rossetti. Here. And Mayor Carroll.
Here. And we have a presentation tonight regarding stormwater utility feasibility. This is coming down through the federal government to the states, to the counties and municipalities. And though I like to say a tax by any other name is still a tax. But the state is putting us all in a difficult position. They did provide us with a consultant, Tony Dill, who's here tonight, to work with us regarding making decisions going forward in the future and the timetable on what we have to do. So if you want, I know Mike Campion's on the phone, right?
Yeah, do you want him as a panelist?
You can put Mike in as a panelist. I would put Bill Hance on as a panelist as well. Because this is all money driven. At some point, it's got to do with some kind of collection is gonna happen, so. So you can put them in. All right, Tony, this is the council, as well as Councilwoman Rossetti, who's up on screen. I know you know Councilman Parker, and he's been to the last presentation you did for the business community, so it's all yours.
Share my screen.
Do you want questions from the council throughout this presentation, or do you want to wait till the end? What's your preference?
Whatever works best for you. I mean, sometimes I find in big groups, it's best to wait to the end because some of the questions are gonna get answered anyway, but in a relatively small forum like this, feel free to,
Okay,
interrupt.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so again, I'm Tony Dill from Arcadis. We're a consultant that was provided by the DEP through a grant that the borough applied for, and we do stormwater utility studies throughout the country. I personally done quite a few in Pennsylvania and a few in New Jersey now since the enabling legislation was passed here. So the agenda tonight, I'm gonna do a little just background overview about stormwater utilities in general, talk about some of the analyses that have been done specific for the borough here. Talk about a few aspects of the program that are required by the legislation, and then really just sort of get into the next steps. Where do you go from here? So, stormwater management sounds pretty obvious, but it's what we do to manage, the runoff in the system, but it includes all the underground infrastructure, the pipes, the inlets, the basins, the outlets from the basins. All these things have to be maintained and periodically repaired or replaced for the stormwater system to function properly. And this gets runoff from our rooftops, our driveways, parking lots, roads, all these impervious surfaces. And if we have the system functioning properly, why do we care about stormwater? Is that it allows us to drive around on the streets, and have less flooded intersections and streets. And it also can protect our our property values if that stormwater is being managed properly in the community. So these are some pictures I actually got from Mike Campion, who I know can't be here in person tonight, just showing some of the work that's been done in the borough over the recent years to show examples. On the left here, you can see like there's a part of the inlet that needs to be repaired, and that was replaced. Other rebuilding of these inlets so you don't end up with sinkholes, that difficult to drive down the streets and things like that. You end up spending more money repairing the roads. If the infrastructure underneath the road is failing, then you usually eventually see it on the roads, you know? And if you don't fix what's underground, you can patch a pothole, and then you back a year later, you're doing it again, right? So again, these are just some examples of kind of how money is spent on stormwater infrastructure and the needs that are typical. So when we talk about a stormwater utility, the DEP defines that as a public utility that assesses fees and uses that revenue for stormwater management. So when you create a stormwater utility, you're charging stormwater fees. That money can only be used for stormwater. It wouldn't go like back in the general fund to just be used for whatever. It has to be dedicated for those uses. And you know, that cost or fees get allocated back typically based on like impervious area and runoff. So who's creating the most stormwater would pay higher fee than someone's less. It's not necessarily tied to assessed value the way taxes are assessed.
Has there been a change in the law? I mean, we've been paying for this all along, for taxes. What's different now that we're talking about? What's changed?
Right. So nobody's required to implement a stormwater utility or fee, but in 2019, the state passed the Clean Stormwater and Flood Reduction Act, which specifically authorized municipalities, counties to be able to create stormwater utilities and charge stormwater fees to the property owners. They've been around the country for decades, but until this year, there were none of these in New Jersey because there wasn't legislation specifically allowing that. New Brunswick's the first one that's actually going forward this year and implemented a stormwater utility, but I know there's several others that are studying. So, you know, then back in 2022, because a lot of communities didn't run out and start stormwater utilities, right? A lot of people didn't want to be first. The DEP created this grant funding program to allow municipalities to do the studies at no cost to the municipality. As you know, the borough here and Raritan Township jointly applied for grant that was awarded. We've been proceeding with the study with Raritan and Bloomington, primarily on an independent basis here. But down the road, if you both decide to move forward, at some point you could decide to do something jointly, but right now this evaluation is looking at just the borough that I'm discussing that as a standalone.
I guess my question, Tony, is did something change? This has gotten so expensive or more expensive? There's more regulation that suddenly we're not talking about this, where we were just kind of going along the
Yeah.
way paying for it?
Well, there's two things. One, I mean, infrastructure just gets older, right? So the infrastructure that every community has, maybe the stuff that was built 50, 60 years ago, those pipes are now starting to get to the end of their life cycle and you need to start reinvesting. But legislative wise, I mean, every time the DEP here, and we see the same thing in Pennsylvania and elsewhere, when there's a new the MS4 is a municipal separate storm sewer permit. When those permit cycles are reissued, like every 4 years or so, they usually add requirements to it. And there's more things you have to do and spend money on. Like this cycle has a watershed improvement plan. So you have to come out and figure out where are the sources of stormwater pollution? What might you do to mitigate those? It's not requiring at this time specific projects you have to go reduce stormwater, but that might be the next permit cycle, you know, and we already have that in Pennsylvania where they municipalities have to do 10% removal of sediments and nitrogen, phosphorus and things like that. So there's both a regulatory driver and then I guess just a needs driver in terms of aging infrastructure. And then in some cases we see bigger storms, you know, more intense rainfall events, so we have more stormwater to manage. It's a combination of those factors. So then we, you know, kicked off the study in the beginning of this year, and I'm going to be giving you an update on it. So stormwater utilities, you know, we talked about this, aging infrastructure, increasing regulatory requirements, increasing flooding issue. I think we just talked about all these things. The one thing I'll say is we've been seeing over the last decades, really, stormwater finally being able to, it's finally being considered like a real utility, like water, wastewater, electricity, natural gas. Those things, all you get utility bills, they have dedicated sources of funding, they can plan projects and manage it as a utility. Stormwater's typically, you know, been managed just as a municipal function, competing with all the other things that are you know, it's competing with in terms of priorities. And lots of times kind of falls towards the bottom of the priority list. You know, it doesn't get a lot of attention, but we're seeing more focus on that it really should be treated just like the other utilities. So I mentioned, utilities have been around for a while. Back in 2008, 16 years ago, there's still almost 1,000 utilities, stormwater utilities in the country. But when you fast forward to 2024, that 900 and so, it's over 2,000. And then, like I said, there's one in New Brunswick at this time. But many are studying it, and in Maplewood Township, I know is pretty interested in moving forward. Raritan seems interested. They haven't made any decisions yet. So again, there's lots of studies going on at the moment. So what's the benefit of actually funding stormwater management through a fee rather than the taxes as you currently fund any stormwater work that you do right now? Well, it creates dedicated funding so you can plan projects. If you design a project, the money is going to be there to go implement that in future years. So that stable long-term revenue allows you to plan and implement projects, but also to finance projects. Maybe you need to borrow to do a bigger project. You have that revenue stream to pay for that. This is a big one. A lot of communities feel that it's a more equitable allocation of costs because the cost for stormwater, the stormwater fees go to all developed properties. Everyone who's got impervious surface, it's not just taxable property. So if there's tax exempt properties, they would be assigned a fee just like they get on water bill. And also those with more impervious areas. So if you had something that's just like a big parking lot, well, maybe the assessed value isn't that high because it doesn't have a lot of buildings and things on it, but it has a lot of stormwater runoff. Well, it would get, at the same size stormwater fee as a 10-story condo on the same footprint, right? Because they have the same amount of impervious area creating the same amount of stormwater.
So let's be clear, so you're talking, we have a school here. We have a whole bunch of county buildings. County jail, 2 county courthouses. Because we're the county seat, we're important, so we have 2,
Right.
not just 1. And we have, I want to say 7 churches. I think 7 sounds right, it might even be 9, but all of them would have to pay to the utility. They don't pay taxes now. Okay, keep going.
Now, there's a credit policy that in some other states it's optional, but in the law here, it's required that you offer credits to property owners that manage stormwater on their property. So that can provide incentive, having that credit policy for people to do upgrades on their own property, sort of voluntarily, or at least to maintain the infrastructure they have, do proper maintenance on it, so they can get a discount off their bill going forward. And that can help the overall stormwater management in the community if what's on private property is functioning properly, like there's a detention basin. If the outlet structure is collapsed and it's not detaining stormwater during the storm, it's all running right through. Well, if you fix that, so it's doing its job, reducing peak runoffs and stuff, then they can get, apply for it and get a discount off their bill because they're doing their part to manage stormwater.
Can you repeat that, beginning of that, so you was I was trying to write that down.
Yeah, so,
Just the beginning, just the first, how you introduced that section.
The
But the
law
runoff of
requires in New
properties.
Jersey to give a credit.
right, so in the enabling legislation, there's a requirement to offer credits to property owners that manage stormwater on their property. And it's all properties, not just
So
residential or commercial.
So I have 2 dry wells on my property that take all the water off my very big ranch roof. And put it right back into the ground, so that would get any credit?
Yeah, now, I will say this, the specifics of the credit policies are not dictated in the legislation. It just
Okay.
says you have to have credits. So it's up to the borough to define, well, what exactly, how does that work? What do you have to do to demonstrate it's a legitimate facility that is functioning properly? How much credit you give? It doesn't tell you, is it 10%, 20%, 50%? So there's a lot of details that you will be in control of to figure the program, but just the concept of having one is there. Now, I will say this, in many cases, the credits aren't enough to motivate somebody to actually, go build a dry well. Like, if it's only gonna give them 10% off of $100 bill a year, to save them $10 a year, am I gonna go build a dry well to save 10? Maybe not. But if you already did it, or you just wanna do the right thing and do it anyway, then there is an opportunity to get that credit. So to incentivize private properties to really do a lot of work, you have to make the credits actually very generous, I would say, or they'll probably say it's not worth it. But that's not necessarily the goal of the program, is to generate private, property stormwater management. So, but if it is, then you gotta factor that in.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
sure, no problem. So the legislation says that the stormwater fees need to be based on a fair and equitable approximation of the proportionate contribution of stormwater runoff. That's all it says. It doesn't say any more specifics as to how you go about doing that. The industry standard is basically looking at impervious surfaces, so rooftops, driveways, parking lots, things like that, that are those hard surfaces that the water doesn't have an opportunity to soak into the ground. And, our goal is to make, to create a stormwater fee that's fair and equitable and consistent with this, but also it's easy to administer. It's not too complicated from an administration side in a level of effort. What we look at for the residential properties is typically based on impervious area, looking at a tier structure, so you fall in one of a few tiers based on how large your property is. For the non-residential or multifamily, sometimes they call them commercial or other developed property, we typically provide a custom bill for each one of those. It's based on their impervious area. We have some of this data in GIS. Then undeveloped properties, which basically don't have impervious area, or in this case, we typically say if it's under some de minimis amount, like 200 or 300 square feet. If it's below that, like that's just a little shed, otherwise it's a vegetated lot, we wouldn't trigger that into getting a stormwater fee necessary. So undeveloped lots would not get a fee.
What's the de minimis that you've seen? I think
It's like 200-300 square feet is kind of what I said. Below that, we're not gonna worry about it, so it's so minor. So one term that we typically use or often use in looking at stormwater utility fees is an ERU, or an equivalent residential unit. And what that refers to is the amount of impervious surface that's on an average or typical residential property in your community. Not statewide or nationwide. So in the borough, what's the average amount of impervious area? It's not this number. This is just a generic graphic here, 1,950 square feet. But in this hypothetical community here on my screen, if you have 1,950 square feet as a typical residential property, then the non-residential properties are built increments of that amount. So in this case here, if somebody had 19,500 square feet, it's a business, that's equivalent of 10 homes. So they would get a bill for 10 ERUs. So if the residential property got billed $100 a year, this other property would get $1,000 a year, right? Just basically still proportionate to impervious area. It's just introducing a term that is commonly used in the industry. You may have heard of EDUs on the wastewater side or something. It's kind of a similar type concept. So the state had impervious area available that was generated, I'd say, by some sort of AI process, automated process, not necessarily AI, but where they recognize from the imagery, buildings, driveways. But you can see it's imperfect, right? It's sort of organic in nature, the shapes, rather than straight lines on driveways. We looked at it, and we said, for a feasibility study, which is the point we're at right now, this information is good enough, right? It gives us a decent sense of how much impervious surface is out there. Any given property might be off a little bit here or there, but it gives us a nice sense of things. And when you get to the bigger, more developed commercial type properties that are often 80 or 90% impervious anyway, between driveways and parking lots and buildings, then the accuracy just goes up because there's just less impervious surfaces to measure.
So the blue blobs are the impervious surfaces?
Well, the red are the building,
That I can see, yeah,
which
that
are
was the
impervious. The
question.
blue is the other impervious, which is mostly driveways, parking lots.
Okay. So
sidewalks.
very blobby. Are
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, and I think this is because, the imagery, especially when you have leaf on imagery, like during the
Okay.
summer months, you get the tree canopies, and it's like,
That makes sense.
a tree is overhanging a driveway, and the
Okay.
whatever, I don't know, whatever process they use, but if it's some sort of automated bot thing, that's kind of looking at the imagery, it's sort of going around like those trees and things like that. Sometimes it gets confused between like brown scorched yard, like you don't water your lawn in the summer, it gets really hot, and then versus a driveway or dirt, it might get a little confused at those things, but again, overall, it's pretty good. It will need some cleanup before going to actually creating a building database. If you decide to move forward and send bills up door, some of this will get revisited, and we probably have some opportunity to do that even within our grant funding if it's done in the near future. The DEP really wanted these grants to be wrapped up by the end of the year, but I think they're probably willing to let it stretch in like January, February kind of timeframe, but I think they said probably not past February. So if there's some money left over, you know, again, it can be potentially used for things like that. So yeah, just other typical examples of the data that we were provided with. So I mentioned that ERU calculation for the borough here, we had 3.3 million square feet of impervious area for residential, single family residential properties. That's what the SFR is on screen. And that's 742 single family residential properties. This wouldn't include like apartment buildings or condos or things. These are single family. So that's an average of 4,481 square feet of impervious area per parcel on average. When you compare that just to some other communities in New Jersey, not that this really means anything, but you can see it's sort of right in the middle. And you would expect like a New Brunswick's more urban, more like row homes, you know, they have less impervious area per property, and Raritan right outside, you know, it's a little more spread out, some bigger houses, longer driveways, things like that would have more impervious area on average per parcel. So when we look at the commercial properties here, the non-single family residential, there's 424 of those parcels. We took the total amount of impervious area, divided it by that 4,481 square feet to get 2,342 ERU.
Sorry, the commercial parcels, is that anything that's not residential?
Anything that's, yeah, so this.
So that includes the churches?
Yeah, I should
number?
have used a different term, right? I've been using how other developed property is really the correct term.
Okay, I just was curious, because I know we don't have 424, I wish we did.
No, it can be anything that's not single family residential. This
Okay.
is municipal.
So this
properties.
is-
This is anything,
So municipal properties are in there, the county properties, the churches, the schools,
yes.
And
all in
dual-
that commercial.
Dual use as well?
Yes, assuming it was coded in the GIS land use or you know, property classification as
Commercial.
commercial dual use, I believe that would fall. into-
Is this where our apartment buildings are too?
Yes,
Okay, everything, but the 700.
yeah, so I forgot to change the name, that should say other developed property,
Okay.
not commercial, that's not.
So I'm sorry, I interrupted you, so you said the average is,
Well, this isn't an average, this is just saying from the non-single family residential, how many ERUs do we have? Which are basically our billing units, if we were to move forward, there's 2,342 ERUs. So equivalent amount, same amount of impervious area as 2,342 typical homes, in typical single family residential properties here. Now, where do those come from? The largest ones are here on screen, the top 5 properties. We didn't aggregate properties, if one owner owns several properties, we didn't add those together, but individual properties, so like 3 Church Street here says about 87 ERUs. So that's the Liberty Village out there, so that would get a bill for 87 times what a typical property owner would receive. You can see there's just the top 5 of those. So, and then roads is kind of an interesting thing. In many communities that I've worked with in the past outside of New Jersey, they'll decide to just completely ignore roads and focus on the parcels. Because roads are considered in some ways part of the stormwater conveyance system, right? The water has to get into, has to move, get into inlets, you know, but when we had this discussion with the DEP early on about talking to municipalities, having them decide how they wanted to handle roads, whether or not to build, most that we're talking to didn't want to bill for roads. Oh, you need to bill for roads. Because in the legislation refers to impervious runoff, it mentions roads, like on the first page of the enabling legislation. I said, okay, so we've now been, you know, looking at roads and how many ERUs, but they said, but the municipality wouldn't necessarily have to bill itself. Like, but other sources of roads in the municipality.
so we have, okay, so we have Route 12, which is state, we have Route 31, which is state. And a little bit of 202, which is state.
But most of the roads are municipal.
Yeah, so first of all, it's hard for me to believe the state's gonna pay us anything. But second of all, some of those roads, like the west side is Flemington Borough, but the east side is Raritan Township. So do we only bill for half a road?
I guess, I mean, that would be, you know, it depending on. There's a edge of the municipalities that always has to be considered when you do these types of things, because sometimes there's properties literally with the municipal boundary through the parcel. And like half a house is in Raritan, half a house is in Clinton. Well, who's taxing? How is that working? Sometimes you gotta just work on this. When you're doing final billing databases, you gotta make sure you get that stuff figured out, but. No, I mean, wherever the municipal boundary is, that's where you wouldn't go beyond that. If it's down the middle of a road, in theory, half of that road would be in and out, but. We've looked at the municipality, rather than charging yourself for your own roads, which is an option that some are doing, and they just have to put that in the budget, and it's a source of revenue that comes in, it's basically taking money out of one pocket and putting it in the other. Say, well, if there's certain services you're providing, overhead support, your time and effort in the building, that maybe all that isn't getting loaded in, and that's being provided for free in exchange for not getting a bill for the billing yourself for your municipal roads. It can kind of go either way, but the point is here, this would be 145 ERUs we bill to the state. So that's potential revenue from the state if the state pays. Now, you run, is the state gonna pay? I know in New Brunswick, they got a bill for some state properties or parcels that weren't roadways, just for that, and wrote a letter back saying we weren't gonna pay that because we're exempt from taxes and municipal taxes and fees. And there's been no resolution to that yet, but I understand they're exempt from taxes, but this is not a tax by
We have
definition.
a massive DOT yard in Flemington, it's 100% of impervious coverage, it's huge. Again, I can't believe that DOT would just round file the bill.
So in the legislation, the only thing exempted is certain farmland assessed properties that are actively devoted to agriculture and horticultural use. There's no other written exemption into the law. Now,
That'll change.
will they amend that at some
Yeah.
point and say, oh, and the state is exempt? I don't know, but it doesn't say that now, and in fact, the DEP has encouraged us. Saying you should really be billing for those state roads now.
And DOT yards.
Will they pay? I can't tell you, time will only tell, but Rutgers University is paying, I'm understanding, they're a state university. So.
What's defined as a private road?
It's a road where the center line type that came up in the GIS system we had wasn't municipal or state or county. It was, I'm trying to think, it could be owned by individual
What about the ones that run behind you?
businesses,
Probably be a road that you guys haven't accepted, or neither the state. nor the
Good
county.
Avenue, oh, you're talking about the alleyways?
Garden, the road that leads to.
I mean, it's only 3% of the total roads here, it's very small, you see 22 years, I'd have to. I could get my GIS person to pull up the specifics of where these are, so you can look at them if you're interested, but, yeah, they're ones that apparently aren't your roads and aren't state roads. Now, roads that are entirely within if you had an apartment complex. And there was little roads within connecting parking lots, that shouldn't even be here, that's just on the parcel, so this is within sort of the right of ways. But the code that was in again, the data we had to work with did not indicate it was state or municipal.
The data that you have to work with, the database, where does that come from?
I believe it was the county has some public GIS files that we were using, and we actually don't have the owner name of the properties has been redacted out. I think there was a law here passed years ago for safety, privacy, something like that. So we have the parcel IDs and the boundaries and all that stuff, but we actually don't have the individual owner names. I mean, you can look them up on Google, and kind of figure it out in some cases, it's businesses. That's that, and the impervious area was a 2015 statewide mapping exercise, I guess, that was done. I understand that may be updated at some point in the future, I just don't know exactly when. So, rate structure, so how do people get billed? So one of the rates that's very common throughout the country, actually in Pennsylvania, more than half the stormwater utilities use a flat rate for residential properties, where every residential property just pays the same. They do it because it's simple, it's easy, you don't have to measure anything. We talked early on with the DEP about that, they said they didn't feel like that was consistent with the legislation, because it says it needs to be based on a fair and equitable approximation of stormwater runoff, basically. So we looked at how the properties are distributed here, and we confirmed that, yes, not every residential property has the same size house and same size driveway, right? That's a bell curve like you would see here and you would expect. But we looked at a couple options and working with staff and Mike and other Tony, Parker executive, we, came up with a 3-tier option that we felt kind of strikes the right balance between simplicity and equity, where every residential property build one of these 3 rates. If you're in the first tier, you can be billed half an ERU, and that's because that group of 170 parcels, 170 homes, has on average 51% of the impervious area that's of the ERU average of the whole overall average. So they have 2,280 square feet on average, whereas 4,481 is the borough-wide average. Group 2 is 96% average. We say we charge them 1 ERU. Again, they average about, as you expect, the typical amount, and that's 439 of the parcels. And then the larger properties, group 3 is 133 properties, would be billed 1.5 ERUs because they average again more than the others. And that creates a total amount of billed ERUs on the right-hand column there, 723 and a half, when we add those all together. And there's, other ways you can do this. You do 4-tier system, 5-tier system. You can make it more complicated. This, a lot of people are kind of leaning towards something like this to keep it somewhat simple. The other thing you have to be mindful of, if you create a whole lot of very granular tiers, now the data you're using needs to be highly accurate. Because you have 50 more square feet in person, nope, moves you to another tier. When you have few tiers, if your impervious area is a little bit off, let's say we think you have 4,120 square feet. Well, if it's really 4,220 square feet, you're gonna get the same bill. It doesn't matter because you're in a group there, right? When you make very small tiers and then moving a little bit puts it different, you get potentially have more appeals and things like that.
Essentially.
Right.
I'm glad that's here.
And you can tell by looking at impervious area, I mean, to get exact square footage of everybody's driveway and deck and rooftop, it gets a little.
That's the majority of the residential units fall into tier 1.
No, the majority, when you see, are
Oh, I
tier
see
2, there's 439 of the 742 would be group 2, and they would be billed 1 ERU.
Got it.
So that's all the background about budget, billing units, and if we get to the point of, well, then how do you calculate,
What did they get out of this? The state,
what do they get?
Yeah.
There's a requirement in the legislation that 5% of the revenue collected, or $50,000, whichever is the less, it's contributing to a clean stormwater and flood reduction fund that the state manages,
if we do a utility,
if you do a utility. There's no money in that fund right now because until just the summer.
so they get a cut.
Yes. I didn't write the law.
I shouldn't be speechless, but I'm speechless,
Um,
not surprised.
One of the, I don't know if it's an intended implication of that, but we're doing a study for Bergen County, for BCUA, but it's including many of the municipalities up there, well, potentially all of them. And our interpretation is that all 70 municipalities in Bergen County gives independent storm utility, each should be subject to that 50,000 cap. But if they do a joint utility, the 50,000 cap would apply to all. So then, your piece of it is very, so like if you and Raritan actually at some point came together, then, because their budget's much larger than yours, they're at the 50,000 cap. So if you rolled in, it doesn't actually add any of that payment to the state. You have to figure out how do you share the 50,000 equitably, but instead of if you had you understand what I'm saying, the more they get in, as one regional utility, and they do want regional utility, so it may have been an intended thing, I don't know. So if you become countywide at some point, then it gets still subject to that 50,000 cap. So just big picture, if you want to calculate a stormwater fee, what's the budget? And how many billing units you have divided by the number of ERUs, and that's how you calculate the fee. So if you're trying to fund $1.5 million, You had 1,000 ERUs, you divide the 1.5 million by 1,000, it'd be $150 per ERU, per year.
Mike is on the line, so is Hans, just curious, did they give you either of them give you an idea of what our stormwater budget is a year? Or what it should be, I guess, maybe, right?
Yeah, so yes, I'm working with Mike, we came up with what the budget should be about 200, you can see $220,000 to $270,000 a year. That includes, maintenance, operations. This includes, a watershed improvement plan that I mentioned earlier, is a requirement of the permit, that's budgeted 50,000 a year in 2026 to 2027, that's under the O&M line, that's why it's kind of like bumps up and then it comes down a little bit. Capital is actually includes a portion of a debt service that can be associated with stormwater, if you do borrowing, municipal borrowing. So these costs are what have been captured for stormwater in the municipality.
Basically, tax dollars have been paying for almost all of that already, except for whatever's new in the newest round
The
of
new round of
MS4,
Right,
which includes having to build a building to cover God's liver, the least we collect. But otherwise, we've already been paying all this through tax.
right, those pictures I showed you earlier, fixing storm, you guys are already paying for that out of tax.
Okay.
But there's some costs that you're paying out of tax now that would be then shifted, or even a lot of what's here is basically taken out of the municipal. Budget and put into the stormwater utility budget.
So is the idea that this would save us any money, like for stormwater? What we're paying now in taxes? If we did this, would it save us anything, or is it the same?
The net result to most taxes is probably gonna be not a lot of difference right now. You're getting a new fee, so that's a new expense, but if everything else was held the same, you would then be able to remove some of these things out of the municipal budget that would reduce the burden potentially, from taxes. Now, whether you would reduce your tax rate or, there's other things that haven't been done that need to be done that would, divert that money, I don't know, that's you guys to decide, but, there's things that would come out of your municipal budget, you're currently spending stormwater that would no longer need to be funded by tax.
But also it's spreading the pool out farther
Right.
for collection. So if this is, I don't know what the magic number is, but hypothetically, $224,000 is 6 cents on the taxes for taxpayers, right?
Right,
Now, if you add more taxpayers in, it might only be 5 cents that we're collecting, because we're now getting it from the county, we're getting it from the churches, we're getting it from everybody who hates our guts now, who don't hate us, we're gonna hate us in the future, the school,
right, right.
and so. Raritan will be collecting it from all the schools. Which
Right.
may end up having an impact into their budget, gets transferred to the taxpayers. who
Right,
pay
and so like,
taxes.
if they were to charge a fee again to the regional high school,
Mhm.
some of that is obviously paid back by Raritan Township taxpayers, right? Because they fund, but
Right.
some of that is coming from taxpayers outside of.
East
Raritan Township,
Amwell,
either in the
right,
borough or
right,
other
right,
where it's in the
right,
county, right? So that particular thing that we for that high school would then be sort of spread out even further, right? But I'm assuming if within the borough, most of the schools are attended by people in the borough.
No, the borough schools it's mostly Raritan Township kids,
Oh, okay, well then
so.
they would be, that would get sort of spread out, if it's in the school budget. Instead of in your municipal budget, then whoever's paying into the school budget. We can dive deeper into that at some point, if you wanna look at some of that specifics, of course. So big picture, we looked at $100 per ERU, holding that rate for 3 years without rate increase, then doing sort of inflationary adjustment. And you take that rate times the net number of ERUs, equivalent residential units, this is after some assumption about credits that I mentioned earlier. That generates a certain amount of billed revenue. We made an assumption, right now you have 95% collection rate. We don't know what it would be, it's a new fee, is the state gonna pay, is the county gonna pay, there's a lot of uncertainty there. Your tax collection rate is probably that or higher, I would imagine. I don't know if that-
It's usually around 98%
Yeah.
in most years.
Right, so we budget a little less of a collection rate here. And then that payment to the Clean Stormwater Flood Reduction Fund, that's the payment to the state is shown there. That creates a total revenue line, $264,000 a year, total expenses vary a little bit by year. And then there's a net revenue there. So the first year showing, a positive, about 40,000. Operating in the red for a couple of years because we had that watershed improvement plan that was estimated it might cost $100,000. And then when that drops off, then you're back in the black, and you can see kind of the balance, running balance at the bottom.
So the 149 homes in the tier one are gonna pay $100 a year. A year?
Well, if they're,
No,
tier one's a
so-
half a
yeah,
year,
so it'd be
so that'd be
$50
$50 a year. Tier two would pay $100 a year, and the tier three would be $150. Assuming they don't have credits, like if they have,
Yeah,
rain gardens and things that you would get credit for, then that could potentially reduce that. We've assumed an average of 10% credit to the residential and the non-residential properties. Everyone but the state roads and stuff we would assume. Typically, we see credits coming out less than that, because one, sometimes people just don't even apply. They just don't think about it or whatever, and just net effect of that. And usually the most credit anybody can get on the property is like maybe 50%, even if you take all your roof leaders and put them into rain gardens, and you still eventually create some stormwater runoff. It's not like anybody on a 5-year storm, huge rain, could have all their stormwater never leave their property, so.
so what about, so we, I don't know how much you know about what's going on in the borough, but Liberty Village, the large redevelopment project completely falls under these new stormwater rules. They've been permitted by the DEP. They have detention basins and retention basins and cleansing basins and, you name it, they got it on this property.
Right.
So will they end up paying anything or not? Because they've got so much mitigation already. Because it's all it's all modern under the newest laws.
Right, what I can say is based on typical credit policies, again, yours hasn't been written yet, right? There's not one dictated, is things like if you take the impervious area, all the impervious area and run it through a compliant, facility on your property, maybe it gets 30, 35, 40% reduction, if you capture all of that. That's how I typically see them. I think that the thought process is because they may be designed for like a 1-year storm or a 1-inch storm or 2, but what happens when a 3-inch storm comes or a 4-inch or a 7-inch, like a big, soaker rain, they get overwhelmed and they create runoff, and that runoff goes into your system and elsewhere, and you still have to manage it. And you've got all the inlets and the roads in front of their property, around the property that you have to manage, so, it's for those reasons, typically those percentages are something in that neighborhood. The only credit program I'm aware of that gets up to the really high percent, like 80-90% credits, is City of Philadelphia. And it's because they have a combined sewer system, and their long-term control plan to reduce the combined sewage dumping in there is built on green infrastructure, having all these distributed things, and they don't have enough room on public space to do it. So they need private property owners to build things voluntarily. So they're giving them super high incentives reduction. But that's atypical from what I see. But again, your credit policy hasn't written, so you could be as generous as you wanted to make it, depending on how, details of what you think feels appropriate. So again, we just sort of talked about this, typical residential properties be $50 to $150 a year, and then other non-residential properties, something that's like 5 times as much of a typical house, maybe like a gas station or small commercial property, could be like $500, and you can see it goes up from there. And this is again not reflect any of those credits that you mentioned that a property might be eligible. So how does that compare? Again, Pennsylvania's your nearest neighbor that has a bunch of these utilities, approximately 74, could be a little more by now. They average about $93 a year for a single family residential property, similar to kind of the number we're looking at here, but they range from $24 to $240. It's a pretty big range based on the community's needs that they have. New Brunswick, past theirs at $77 per ERU, but keep in mind their ERU is only 2,100 square feet. So that's $77 for 2,100 square feet. Whereas here we're talking about $100 for 4,000 square feet, so it's when you look at it per square foot, it's actually probably even a higher rate. It's just they have smaller homes, that divides them into more pieces. I won't spend much time in here because we've already kind of talked about the credit policies. The idea is if somebody's managing stormwater, they should get a credit, and it is required by the legislation. This is the legislation, the details of it, if you want to read it, and read it later, just goes through. Not only do you have to get credits for things that meet today's requirements, like your bills and but if it was compliant with the ordinance that was in place at the time, you still have to recognize and give them credit for that. Just to make sure people know, credits and exemptions are two different things. Credits are how you get a discount on your bill. Exemption is you're completely exempt from the bill. And the only properties that by legislation are the farmland ones, doesn't really apply here, but it does in Raritan. And then, as we said, undeveloped property.
But we can we exempt ourselves?
It doesn't say that in the legislation. And most municipalities choose, at least for the municipal properties, to bill themselves, because they just say everybody pays, everybody's getting a bill, it's just easier to explain. But it is taking money from the right pocket and putting it in the left pocket, right? So one of the first ones that ever worked on Hamden Township, they decided they didn't build their own municipal properties for that reason. So what's the point of just moving the money right to the left? So I think it's something we could look at.
I was just asking.
Yeah. Any of the benefits and credits, as we talked about, reduces the fee for those that are managing stormwater. The concerns is just make sure the credit policy isn't so complicated that, you have to hire necessarily an engineer to fill out your application or evaluate it. You want to make them pretty simple to follow. And then, periodically you want to audit to make sure people are, deserving that credit. They say, oh, I have this whatever detention basin, you probably want to go out periodically and make sure it's still functioning, right? Filled with sod or whatever, like they're actually using it the way it's supposed to.
Tony, could we talk about New Brunswick for a second? Is this first year 2024 that they're doing it, or are they launching it and starting in 2025?
No, their bills went out, I think in midsummer.
And how did that go, do you know politically how that went over in town? Was there, did they like give everybody $50 off their taxes, as a soft landing or something for the first year?
I'm not aware that anything like that happened. My colleague, Rich Gruhl, is the manager for them, so I kind of, some of the details, but I'm not aware they did anything like that. And they actually went, really fast. We thought they were gonna start billing in the fall, and then we found out the bill's already out the door. The mayor got excited, wanted to go, and they went. And like I said, they've been collecting revenue. The only one I know of, they got an indication that they weren't gonna pay was the state set it for state properties. That wasn't even kind of the bill for state roads. That must have gone to a different address, that remains to be sorted out. But I understand Rutgers is paying. I think they just want some details about specific, impervious surveys done correctly. Yeah. I think this is I think I'll have one more slide after this. And then I'll say it's always a lot for questions. So the concepts we talked about for credit policies, it applies to residential and non-residential. We can't just do the commercial properties. That some municipalities do that in other states. We want to require operation maintenance agreements. So if you have a facility, you have to agree to maintain it and in the future and provide periodic inspection reports, maybe once a year, make sure you're documenting that some facilities in good shape. That the property sells.
Who does that go to?
Somebody in the borough that would be, or in the stormwater utility, would be receive those. And if there's a requirement that you're supposed to say submit an annual report that you've inspected your stormwater basin and it's checked the box, it's got an inlet, it's got an outlet, whatever. If somebody doesn't do that, you can give them a warning letter, and if they still don't respond or whatever, you can take their credit away. So if they were getting a 25% credit, well, that goes away, and their next bill is gonna be higher. And then, and in fact, in Hamden Township, they saw a huge increase in the compliance. They already had their own agreements, but nobody was submitting their annual reports, because there was no hammer. Like when people didn't do it, there was nothing. Once they started getting a discount off their stormwater bill when they enacted that, all of a sudden, people started submitting their annual reports and stuff because they wanted to get that discount. Oops, sorry. Go back. We go, every 3 years, plan to inspect these, though you'd have to write it at any time. And the thought is require an application fee, maybe a small one, but just to discourage some frivolous applications. It varies. Some municipalities see if they don't charge any fee, people just mail it in, check all the boxes, and can you waste your time having to evaluate something that had no merit? Whereas if there's a fee, maybe it's $25, maybe it's, something nominal. And make it, people are less likely to throw in a frivolous application if they've got to pay you something, even if it's $10, right? People don't want to throw away the money, so. Something that, and sometimes if you have very large properties, maybe charging a tiered amount, so if it's very complicated, they have lots of basins and things to evaluate, lots of ERUs. Maybe instead of the $25, maybe it's $100 or $50, or have some sort of tier structure. Details haven't been nailed down, but we have examples.
In these other towns, do you see a lot of like individual residential properties applying for these credits? If it's only gonna be like, a 10% reduction on a $150 a year bill? Like it's
Not-
$15, I can't imagine it really.
We don't see a lot, in Cheltenham Township, which is a borders Philadelphia. We manage their credit reviews for them, or we had for the first year or so. The most common ones there was they had a wooded lot credit. If you met the definition of a wooded lot in their ordinance, meaning more than a certain number of trees that are more of a certain diameter per 100 square feet of property or something, you could get, it was to encourage you having wooded lots, but their fee there is based on lot size, not impervious area. So that would mean if you had a big residential property but a small house, you're paying more than somebody who had a smaller lot with a bigger house, which you could argue isn't really fair. So by having this wooded lot credit, it was able to mitigate that a little bit. Okay, you got a bigger fee, but now you can get a credit because your lot's mostly full of trees now.
So what would fall under, I see an innovation category, is that where that
So-
fall or?
We found that it's helpful to include something like that. So if somebody is doing something that everybody looks at and says, yes, this is helping manage stormwater, but it doesn't quite check the boxes of the other things, that we can consider it. It gives us an opening. And one example that has come up is where the credit policy was written about. One I've seen, managing the runoff of the impervious area on your property. So if the impervious area on your property goes into a stormwater management facility, it gets a credit. If somebody had a storm management facility that was managing stormwater, but it was coming from off their property, like their neighbor's house was all running into it, and it was detaining it, and before it goes out, so it was providing a public benefit, but it wasn't capturing any of their own impervious area, so technically it would get a 0% credit. But you look at it and say, well, that doesn't seem right. So this would allow you to say, oh, well, under this innovation credit, or you can name it something else, miscellaneous or whatever, it's providing benefits, okay, we want to accept.
So neighbors working together to get that down and back out to the street would be.
Yeah, that's just an example. I mean, it can be, somebody can try to abuse it. Somebody had an old swimming pool they weren't using, so it's a cesspool. Arguing runoff was coming into it, they'd pump it out every once in a while. They're trying to claim that as stormwater detention or something. They got not approved by the municipality. They didn't feel like it was a valid stormwater management thing, but I guess you could get creative with something like that and try to make it work. We don't see these used a lot, to be honest, I mean, most people got better things to do than figure out how to, like you said, save $15 a year,
The big storm we had a few years ago, all of our neighbors on our section of the street, everybody took a look at their gutters, they took a look at the gutters on their sheds, their garages, and we worked together because the guy at the top of the street, great hard. And then coming down, we just had people across the street that have that to their kitchens. So we worked together and now it's alleviated a lot of that just by. Anyway, so that's why I'm wondering,
Right.
who else could we get to do that? Can we get anybody else to do that?
What is it?
Never mind.
So that's all I had to present. The next step is just sort of deciding on this, if the rate structure makes sense, the budget, the rate, all these things we kind of talked about, they can be tweaked. And some of these credit policy concepts, if they make sense, if we have any more questions on that, then we prepare a report. It's in our scope of work, DEP, to summarize all this, put it all into a report. And that's will be reviewed by you and the DEP, and it's available to you. And then You decide to move forward, it's a like, then there's the implementation phase, that's you know, getting the ordinance passed, getting the billing database in place, finalizing that policy, things like.
Do you mind, for any members of council, Councilwoman Rossetti, you have any specific questions, and is it okay if I open it up to the public? Is that, you good with that?
I had a couple.
Okay.
I had some logistical questions and some, typical Joe Flemington wallet questions. So, you mentioned New Brunswick right now is the only city that has this
My knowledge.
right now in New Jersey, okay. And I just wanna make sure, so is this coming from the state, like, we must absolutely create this utility?
Oh, no, this
Okay.
is. You make the decision, you can say, no, we just wanna continue funding this through taxes the way we've always done it, and that works for you guys, then. We'll
Okay.
have to move forward.
Yeah, cause I mean, my big question was like, we get a bill. It has water and sewer on it. And then this would be, I assume, added as an item, you would say.
Is that a municipal water and sewer bill?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so you could add it onto that, yep. Some people
Okay.
add it to a tax bill, some people make it a standalone bill, it's really kind of your preference
Hmm.
on doing it.
So. And I guess like, one of the questions I had, and I sort of think I follow, but I wanna make sure I get it. So if I live in a house and I have a certain amount of impervious coverage, but how people would process this if, as a homeowner, like, my property's dry. Like, my basement's dry, right? We got a lot of wet basements in town and whatnot, a lot of runoff. But if I'm in a situation where like my runoff from the house goes down a hill, I'm fine, like how I process it, I'm
Yeah,
dry,
yeah.
alright, I'm good, I'm high and dry, but down there it's not. Do I get like? The fairness and equity of it, I think comes up there, cause somebody would ask like, well, why do I have to pay more of a fee? I mean, I'm cool here. But stuff coming from my driveway and off my roof is going down there, and that's where water's collected. Like, is that something that you see happening, like?
No, when the stormwater fees are calculated. What I've seen almost everywhere is it's based on something, whether it's your lot size, which is not really typical, or the amount of impervious area. It's not trying to tie to, and where exactly does your stormwater go, and because that would just become unmanageable. If you had to try to figure out where every property in the borough, where their stormwater went and its impact on other properties or whatever, it's too complicated, right? You know, so it's usually just stormwater runoff. If you make a runoff, it has to be managed. Yeah, maybe your house creates stormwater runoff and you're in a location that's more problematic than yours, but we don't have the ability to kind of charge you more or you less based on that, because it would just, you spend more money as you're trying to figure that out, man, your budget would go through the roof, and now you have to just charge everybody more.
And I guess, yeah, and this one kind of ties to the concern of equity. We talked about. So we would create the tiers. In Borough Hall, we come up with that tiered system, like what, or no?
Well, I mean, there's a tier system presented here that it would be for you just to adopt, if you like, made sense and you agree with it. If you guys don't like it, it can be revisited. I mean, we went through a couple options, I think a 3-tier, 4-tier, when I was working just with. Like, I forget, Tony, if we reviewed that with you a long time ago, but at least with Mike, the campaign, we kind of went through some options. And that was sort of determined at the time, it seemed to be the most advantageous, but it's not the only way to do it. So yes, you can come up with a different
Okay,
structure if you thought something else was better suited.
okay, thank you.
I think one of the financial exercises that should be looked at is the stormwater budget as proposed by the DPW. If we don't do stormwater utility, what's the impact to the average taxpayer? You know, is it $130 versus the 100? Because it's not being spread out, and I'm curious about what that translates to without a utility. For the average taxpayer in town. Any other council members have any questions?
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead, Trent.
I don't know if I missed it, but the exact way that and I know we're talking about tiers again, but like. The exact way that we're calculating how each property falls into each tier, right? Cause you showed there were properties that had, you know, like up to like 70, 80 of these ERUs, right? How are we actually determining like how many of these ERUs go to each property again?
Right, and so,
If you already went through it, you don't have to go through the whole thing, I might have just missed it.
no,
but
I just.
It's not like we have a survey for every single property in town delineating the, you know.
Well, we do have this imagery data for every single property in
Yes,
town.
yeah.
And what we're doing actually for Maplewood and maybe starting to do a little bit for Raritan in anticipation of moving forward is going through and actually doing some cleanup on that right now. But this would be used to calculate the number of ERUs and send them a bill. That may be subject to some cleanup, like I talked about, but
Sure.
that, we have a number right now for each of those properties. The tiers I talked about is only for the single family residential
Okay,
properties.
okay.
So businesses, churches, hospitals, jails, municipal buildings,
So
whatever.
like I own a giant commercial property and you send me this based on this calculation, I go, oh, well, I have this survey that says actually it's this many.
Yeah,
and
then
we
we could
adjust it accordingly.
there's always an appeal process. Somebody goes, you bill me 37 ERUs, I think it showed me 32. Okay, show us your information, we'll look
Sure.
at it, and if you're right, you'll be adjusted.
And this is based on 2015, so if somebody put a big addition on their house, you're missing it.
Right, what we've done, I don't know if we did it here, because I'm not sure how much property has been developed since 2015. But whatever new development has occurred would need to be accounted for, even if we don't have it in the imagery, but somebody added 10 ERUs over here, 5 over here, those can be added in. And then in the future, we could periodically look at imagery, but it's easier to just take permits, like building applications or certificates of occupancy, they go out the door, whatever it is, okay, yep, we have this new thing. Make sure it's added into the stormwater, billing database.
Any other questions, Chair?
No, I think that was it.
Councilman Parker?
No, I'm sorry, I'm late. No, it's okay.
Councilman
Okay,
Sorry?
comment later.
I would like to see that just, if we could get numbers between tax versus a. Something that, because I just, I don't, if I can save a resident or family $5, I'd prefer to do it.
Right.
So.
Councilwoman Engelhardt?
Yeah, I was interested in your comments about Bergen County, and they all work together. And I guess my question is, originally, because you referenced Raritan as well, we didn't, you'll have to refresh my memory, we didn't go after this grant to do this study in conjunction with Raritan, did we?
No, they did.
They did it on our behalf, oh, that's right, thank you, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
You did some approval to go on the application.
They asked us, if they wanted,
Yeah.
they did it with us.
We
for us.
are tied together in related to stormwater, how water goes.
And the
back and
MUA is
forth.
actually named on the application as well, as maybe the entity that would bring
Okay.
everybody together and pay
So,
for the billing.
That's the first phase of my question. I guess the next one is. And I'm not necessarily a fan of this because, we all got our water and sewer bills just a couple days ago and mine was $120 more than it was last year, so. I don't necessarily want to add another tax, and I honestly don't think. It's realistic to say we're going to move it from this bucket to this bucket and then bring this bucket down, but if we can prove, like Adrian said, that we can save money. Per household, I'm all open to it, so I'm open-minded, however. I guess my question is, if we do decide, let's just say. We go in with another municipality. Can you then go in with a larger group? Let's say the county wants to get on board and we've already established a utility with either ourselves or with Raritan. Can we then go in and establish a larger utility, or are we stuck with, yeah, thank you.
Maybe it's a better question for the attorney, but I'm not aware there's any reason why, if you take some action from utility, you're stuck with that forever, that you couldn't expand it.
You could merge later or just.
Other municipalities or go regional,
You can do a merger.
Okay.
It has to do a little deeper dive into the specifics, but yeah.
I'm just curious if there was anything in the legislation that prevented us from doing that in the future, no matter what action we took.
Not that I have seen or that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Memorize every word of it, but I don't think I saw anything that says, once you do this, you're stuck forever, like in that structure.
how quickly can we get that distinction?
Well, that's a Bill Hims question. He's
Okay.
listening to this now, so.
Bill, that would be a concern of mine, is just knowing that little piece of information.
I have one other question. I know that some individual parcels in this town, specifically residential parcels, you know, we're a colonial plan town, you know, 300 years old. So our parcels tend to be a lot smaller than a lot of municipalities, right? So often you've got a house on a property so small that even putting it in, like, they're already over the pervious,
Right.
you know, the allowed pervious coverage, and impervious coverage before they even step out their door, right?
Right.
So not counting their driveway, not counting any addition they wanted to put on. So how, is there any reason why we should look at this from a planning standpoint differently because we have that kind of denser, smaller lots than, let's say, a Raritan? I know you mentioned the financial benefit of, you know, the not more than 50,000 if you're teaming up with somebody else, but what about our unique circumstances as a center designation type town where we're a little more dense, but we're not urban? Does that benefit or hurt us in any way when we form a utility?
I don't think so, but what the result of that is, as we showed earlier, like the ERU value, the average impervious area per resident is less here than Raritan, right?
Right.
So it's just a function of, you know, smaller lots or bigger lots, but in the end, you have a certain amount of budget and you're trying to just spread it out over the impervious area, right? And whether that's a bunch of little properties or fewer bigger properties, it's still gonna end up hitting dollars per square foot of impervious area kind of the same, right? So, and in the case you brought up, if you had a small lot, with almost 100% impervious, let's say you've got 4,000 square feet impervious on a 4,500 square foot lot. Well, if you have the same 4,000 square feet on a 20,000 square foot lot, they would get the same bill because the trees and the grass and stuff we're saying wouldn't get, they're not built, you know, so. I don't know if that.
No, that helps put things in perspective. Thank you.
Council Vice President, do you have any questions?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to get a little clarification on one thing. If we were to have this utility and give people a credit, if you will, right, if they have a dry well or a rain garden or something like that, does that mean we're getting a credit from the state, or does that mean it's getting more distributed among the other people who don't have those beneficial things on their property?
Yeah, it would just be distributed amongst the other people, yes, and we've already budgeted into the rates I've shown you. Some assumption that you're gonna be giving out an average of 10% credits. Now that could be half the people getting a 20% credit, 20% of the people getting a 50% credit. It's in the end, I suspect, because typically I see that number ends up being less than that, but depends on the details of the credit policy and the program we put in place and how many properties actually have something that's credit worthy. I don't know, older developed homes typically don't have a lot of, you know, rain gardens and underground, you know, storage or green roofs or any of those types of things, so they probably won't be eligible. You know, possibly.
So we don't know what people will put in since Hurricane Ida. We really don't.
Right, so there could be things out there, but.
Thank you.
There's-
Yeah, that was my main question. And then, yeah, I just think that if we can save people money one way or the other, of course, it's worth it. Every dollar counts nowadays. But I do wonder if having a utility and then having those overhead costs of having borough employees going out to like check on these things, what do they have, what do they not have? Like, is that really going to save anything in the long run? I don't know though.
Right, and some of the question you brought up is if some of the savings comes from revenue, like say from the state or the county, are they gonna pay? I mean, that's something I can't say definitively one way or the other.
Can the county say no? I mean, the state can make the legislative change and take themselves out. We know they could do that. But they're most likely not to take that to county. The question is, can the county say no? And then what's our hammer if the county refuses? Like, there's, you know.
Yeah.
We're gonna really litigate, and we're the county seat, are we gonna
Turn off the
litigate?
water
Shut off
and
the-
to their county
Focus word.
facility.
Next. Okay, so if nobody else from the council, anybody from the public in the audience have any questions Tony, I just need your name and address for the record.
Yeah, so Tony Pro, 25 North Main Street.
I think you do need to come up to the microphone, otherwise the councilwoman can't hear you. Online, or can anybody else? who's
I
online?
just was wondering, it seems like a gorilla of a project here, you know, pulling the utility and all. However, with individual homeowners, based on, well, you know, what Susan was saying, you know, I have an older home. And with impervious coverage, with my driveway, where the house is situated. I mean, there's some things where you have to protect, let's say, the dryness of your basement, you know, where your water goes. Some people don't have a large amount of, you know, property around the homes, but what type of credits would individual homeowners get if they do implement on dry wells? They try not to, you know, pump that water, you know, out to the driveway, to the street, wherever. Because it just amazes me when I look outside my house on North Main Street to see all that water coming down Thatcher's Hill, hitting all the catch basins, thousands of gallons going into the stormwater. I'm thinking like, you know, individual homeowners, if they just do 20% of the job of trying to direct the water into the ground, you know, versus out, you know, down the driveway, wherever. It just seems like just a little bit imbalanced.
You know, you live in the lowest point in the borough,
Well, again,
so.
that's why some of the commercial properties are just
Right.
vacant. You know?
Tony, is that something that, your company, I mean, obviously, you were implying that we have some time and some money left from the grant to continue studying this in some fashion. Is that something your company, consults on, is what these credits could be and how much they would be valued at? Because, you know, you're asking us, Tony, and we haven't just, this is
I know,
all
this is all
new.
virgin stuff here. Yeah, certainly, and we have example credit policies.
Okay,
All over the place, and you can even just Google them, you'll find them, but we have ones that we've worked on, we have one that we've drafted for Maplewood and New Brunswick already, to help them along. So there's versions of that you can just copy over and, you know, tweak it, right, really to suit your needs. But one of the principles typically is determining, for whatever you decide that stormwater management thing is worth, 20%, 30%, 50% credit, it's usually multiplied times what's the percentage of impervious area in your property that goes into it. Like if you have a dry well, but it's only capturing, and let's say that's worth a 50% credit. But if it's only capturing 10% of your runoff, then it'd be 50% times 10%, so you only get 5% off your bill. But if it's big enough to capture all your driveway, all your house, all your roof, all your deck, it goes into it, then maybe it could be 50% times 100% or get an actual 50% reduction in your bill. So, yeah, I mean, it's all, you know, house by house, lot by lot, it's pretty mechanical. What you get off the roof, what you could put back into the ground. But let's say just a person's driveway, you know, the water just runs down, the rainwater runs down, it goes out to the street. Can't do nothing about that, you know, I mean, what are you gonna do? But, and then I have another question, a lot of big giant warehouses are being proposed and being created. You know, it's the same in Jersey in general. Where do they direct their flat roof water? Where does that go? In these huge roofs on these huge buildings, where does that stuff go? Do they get credits for keeping, you know, the water in the ground versus wherever else they channel the water? 'Cause I mean, out there in Phillipsburg, I'm in amazement at that Amazon complex and the number of giant warehouses goes back for miles. Where does all that water go? I mean, is that detracting from the overall water supply? It's, you know, this here is sort of almost like infinitesimal in terms of all this other water and where it's going into these storm drains, or like I say, with these large commercial warehouses, like where's those thousands of gallons of water going? I'm just curious. Typically, most municipalities, maybe they all have ordinances that would require them to mitigate that stormwater runoff into basins, you know, so there's probably underground pipes, there's probably internal piping, if it's big enough, and external drains that take it down into pipes and then goes into basins that are around the parking lots, or whatever, and store it temporarily or allow it to infiltrate, and then it runs off. So, but again, it would just seem like for a town like Flemington,
it's really, difficult to try to, get credits and, keep your basement dry or direct the water to where it has to go. It's on an individual basis. I mean, I'm trying to do that just to keep the older part of my house dry, the basement dry, because with the rains we had in the spring, you quickly find out like where that water is, permeating, where it's going. So you try to direct it away from the house, but when the water is saturated, it's very tough to
Just to be
do.
clear, the measures to keep your basement dry wouldn't necessarily qualify for a credit. Like I spent a fortune in my own house putting in a French drain system, and some places I was getting moisture in the basement, mildew, and it just takes to some of it and pumps it outside, but that doesn't give me a credit. I mean, my township doesn't have a fee yet, but they're evaluating one, but if they do, that would not be eligible. That's just keeping my basement dry. It's actually worse, it's creating probably more runoff, so it doesn't end up in my basement, but
Like I said, from a practical standpoint, you try to keep the water away from your foundation, away
Right.
from the basement.
Right.
But some of these larger scale things, I just look at it and I said, another little tax on the homeowner, which Adrian had mentioned. So it all amounts to money.
Anything else from the audience, the public here in the building? Anybody online have any questions? Okay, well, so the next step then, we're gonna wait till Bill Hans gives us some kind of breakdown of what the taxpayers are currently paying towards this budget, or what they would pay towards this proposed budget as a comparison if we form a utility. So,
and because the database we have doesn't have property owner in it, it has classifications. I may need to work somebody to confirm the county or state owned parcels in the borough. Because those would potentially be new sources of revenue that aren't coming from basically the local, Flemington taxpayers aren't funding. Like the
Right.
municipal building, if you charge yourself, that's just gonna go back into the budget, and then the local taxpayers are paying it one way.
yeah, I mean, I can help you with that. I'm sure my champion can. If he doesn't know, I certainly do.
That would help with that, I think, evaluation. What's the bottom line if you did it?
Because we have a lot of churches in this town, a lot. A lot of nonprofit buildings.
So good question, will Tony be giving the DPW committee an update, or will that update come directly back to us, the council? Oh, I'm assuming, I should assume that this was
previewed
on the-
months ago, and it's very early nascent stages by the DPW subcommittee as the liaisons. So I, not in a much rougher form than this.
So I guess that's where, is the DPW committee going to be taking inventory of this first, or will Tony come back to us directly, I guess? is my
I think it'll go back to the DPW subcommittee. I'm not sure Tony's gonna have time unless we figure out what else we're doing here with them.
Thank
If we have money left over.
Yeah, I'll coordinate with
Bill
Mike.
Bill is up on there. Bill, did you have any comments about their CFO, Bill Hans?
Yeah, hi, Mayor. I just ran some quick numbers on what the actual tax impact is for that amount of money, about, 250,000 or 300,000. The average house, that would equate to about $140 on the tax bill. So you're looking at, I don't know how much of that we're currently paying, but that would then come off of the tax bill and then go through this bill.
Okay, but if so if a house is paying 140, a regular taxpayer is paying 140 approximately towards this stormwater requirement of the borough, and we form a utility, that house is gonna not be paying $40. They'll get a bill now for $100 if they're paying full ERU. They'll get a bill for $100, but 140 is gonna come off their tax bill.
Right, and the difference would be that the balance is paid by the tax exempt properties.
Right. Okay. Mike Campion, do you have anything you wanna comment on?
I do not, Mayor.
Okay. Okay, I think we're good. We'll figure this out and keep moving it.
Yeah. Good comments. Thank you.
Okay, so, thank you again. We have, another presentation, regarding sign design from the, Budding Community Partnership. How much time?
We'll be quick.
Okay.
Thank you. Michelle is online. Hi, nice to see you again. We had two of Tony's wonderful presentations for the business community.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. So can I be a presenter first and then Michelle is going to be a presenter?
Wait, hold on. I removed Tony. Okay, so he's out. I don't know why he didn't leave.
You testing it out to see if it's real, that's really you. Leaving.
Okay. I had to remove Tony first. Where are you? Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make you a, first I gotta make you a panelist and then I'm gonna make you a
It says
co-host.
join as panelist.
Yep,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna make you a co-host. And are you sharing on your
I
computer?
am sharing.
Okay. Hold
No,
on.
but no volume. Not
No
sharing by
volume, yeah. You know, you're a panelist.
So,
Hold on.
okay. It says I'm a co-host now.
Yes, and so
Okay.
now you could share.
Now I can share. All right, so,
There you go.
okay, so everybody can see this. I'm just giving you perspective of the sign project. So here's an example of one of the former maroon wayfinding signs. This one, they've all been numbered, they're all in storage. We have a catalog of what each one said, and we also have pictures of what each one looked like when they were removed. The scratching, and it's amazing that something that high up in the air gets scratched, but it does. And that had a lot to do with the substrate of that was used. So we've found a way to cover these very affordably so that they could be covered. And if names change or color preferences change, they can be skimmed with a UV vinyl that's guaranteed to last like 5 to 10 years. We've actually tested this vinyl and so far so really good. Some of the signs do need a little more work to fill in the gouges so that when they get covered, they won't look like this, but basically everything's good. And if we scroll down to the bottom, this is number 30. We found 30 in C2, in the street. Moving to the next thing, basically, these are all the words that were on the sign. So the past sign nomenclature only said these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 things. So we've struck Flemington Firs and Liberty Village from the signs, and we started to look at new nomenclature, which would be, instead of historic downtown, we have historic Main Street District, Stangle Arts and Cultural District, the Circle, We made a change, sorry, since I typed this, I'm changing it right now, Circle Shopping District. What we call the historic courthouse square, historic courthouse, Court Street Park. Those things, we want more input and, on what the official name should be by the time we're really ready to go to print. The Justice Center, we also want the county to give us input on whether we call it Justice Center, which is what it was called before.
When it had a jail.
Whether we call it county admin buildings, which is what the sign said in the past. Borough police were not on the signs, borough library, not on the signs, borough hall, not on signs. Public parking lot was not on the sign, it just said parking. Justice Center parking lot was not ever listed independently, and county parking lot. So we have an opportunity to make these improvements. Okay. So what we did was we numbered every sign, we numbered every post. So we can go back and put number 8 sign back on number 8 post, which seems like the right way to do it. We identified where it is, we identified which area it's in, we indicated what the old verbiage was, so we can go to the new verbiage, we know the size. In addition, we made a map of where the parking is that still remains parking. And we have a, oops. Oh, come on, can I please move that? We have a, let me just show you where it is. We have this is the map of what we were trying to do with when we put the signs back, which is represent 3 different business districts. So here you see the red signs are really our Main Street district. The orange signs are the Stangl Arts and Cultural District, and the green signs are the Circle Shopping District. And that one little outlier, number 7 by the golf course, will probably go more with the green than Stangl, but you know.
You're not sharing that map that you're looking at.
Oh. Sorry about
We're
that.
just looking at these here.
What happened?
I don't know.
Any idea? It says I'm screen sharing. Oh, okay, well,
Are you just screen sharing that screen? Or are you screen sharing?
Sometimes you have to take it down and then.
yeah, I think it's that it's like a PDF, and I don't think it's gonna come up for you, so I will share that. I will print it and share it and give it to everyone for how these things.
So Robin, what's left to do is you have to you still have to talk to the county about verbiage.
We started that conversation.
You have to fix some signs with some kind of filler.
Yeah, there's
And who's doing that work?
We have priced out who is the most efficient person to do it, and our painter,
So
We
it's
have
a
a
professional is gonna
Yes.
put in filler and make them all smooth
yes.
and
It's
you
like
have,
what they use to fill scratches in a car.
okay, and once you have the county verbiage, how long does it take to order the wraps?
Ordering them and getting them done is, for each sign is like a 2-week process. The complicating thing is just how large the signs are, so we can only, work on like 5 to 10 signs at a time.
But how long does it take, like, you order them and you get the wraps?
The vinyl can be printed in like 2 days. It's
Okay,
just,
and then the wraps come in
yes,
and they have to be applied. And that's what takes time.
it takes only a couple days. That's not the hard part.
What is the hard part?
Really the painting, the back of the sign and the filling in the gouges is,
Fix it.
yeah. So we have more to show you. I just wanted to give you a concept of like how what decisions are left to be made. And then we can actually go to Nicole and let her, Nichelle, I'm sorry. Nichelle, who's online, we've had a really long day.
They had a really long meeting until 7:30.
Oh, I know. I'm sorry.
So do you wanna take that off?
Well, it's off on my screen.
Well, I don't know
I'm
why
gonna
it's
just
looking
say
like that.
stop share.
Yeah, cause I don't
Okay.
know why it's looking like that.
Hi, Michelle. Michelle works for Brandon Chanty Media, who is our marketing firm and working with us on the sign project. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. How are you?
Is she doing a presentation?
Yes,
Okay, so I'm gonna have to,
we're gonna let you be a presenter
or
Not a
co.
problem.
and a co-host.
Whenever you're ready. Good to see everybody.
You too.
Okay, you should be able to share now.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so let me pull this up. So what I'm about to share is kind of the update to the seal. I know this exercise has been done a couple times. We worked with Robin, including your feedback, to get some cleaner versions that can be used not just for the signage, but for other applications, whether it's digital, print. So you actually have a high res. The current seal there is not really a high res file that prints out well. So we did some work here on that. So I'm going to share that with you all with the final iteration that we were able to come up with. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this will show you the original seal, the before. And then we have the after. We always start in black and white to make sure we get all the elements down. And then we did do a colorized version, and I'll take you through some of these. And we put them, what we call in environment, in some of the signage that Robin just showed with some different colors as well.
Michelle, can you just expand the middle one just to show what it says, and so people who have,
Is that good?
yeah, so
A little back.
yes, you can, yeah, little back. So
How's that?
basically, I don't think there is an Illustrator version or an EPS file for the seal. When we've asked for it, it's like you don't have a good version of it. It's muddy. It might have been faxed a couple times to, you know what I mean? So we wanted to, in order to print from it, we really need something crisp, and now you can have an electronic version of it for when you go to print anything you use it for. So, you know, we because it's the medallion in every sign, you know, in every one of the maroon signs, this is what you see up at the top. We wanted to get a good file, you know, this is your seal. We use it, but we just want to make sure you're happy with this, and, you know, it's for you to give input. But it does look much more crisp and will serve you better when you go to print things.
I just say, I'm furious that you've done this right after I finished recreating every single form on our website with that old miserable copy of the seal.
Well, think of it this way. We're coming in to save the day with a good file.
Yeah, it'll be really easy now.
Yeah, and you'll have layered files, all the formats, EPS, PNG, no matter what size. If you need to blow this up to a half a city block, you'll have the resolution to do that.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
Pet peeve of mine. You've lost the shadowing underneath the portico that is very prominent on our historic courthouse.
Correct, that was the direction we were given.
We suffered like, I can't even, there are pictures of the courthouse where the perspective is so bizarre of the roof, it's just really hard. And there were a lot of shadows. Interestingly enough, that Trent, if you don't mind just holding up the banner sign, you know, this is what in the end, kind of look like the best, version of the courthouse, even though it's really not accurate perspective and, you know, there really aren't shadows. It's very iconically the courthouse, and that's what we were striving for is not to make it too dark, too shadowy, you know. We can respond to any of your pet peeves or design.
I don't wanna make too
feelings.
big a deal. I do see some graphically represented shadows on that flag there that are very subtle that I think might make the portico pop a little bit. But I'm not a graphic designer, so I would ask your graphic
We
designer
could
to
send
look
you
at it.
my electronical.
Sure.
I have one.
So.
But it's lovely. It's lovely. I know how much
It's
work you
nice.
put into it, so thank you.
It's very clean,
Yeah.
and that's really what we wanted, clean, and, you know, the courthouse now is so beautiful and so cleaned up. And we've tried to work with photos, we've tried a lot of things, so we're not married to this colorized version, if people. But we don't have colors that are the brand color pattern, so this is for discussion. So we're gonna show it to you and ask you to sit with it. And why don't you show them what it looks like in some,
Is there really a brand
applications.
color in the town? Cause I've never
no, we
seen.
don't have one. I think it could be that banner, I don't know the
Well,
history.
that's our municipal flag.
Yeah,
So
I mean, those might be the colors.
that's. I don't know
That's the
what
same
color.
This
color.
right here.
Sky blue or
Yeah,
dark
I
blue,
think that's got.
But no, I mean, it makes everything pop. It's
Yeah.
very
but it's
clean.
more of a cartoonish blue than the blue of our
It's very
flag.
clean.
We can play with this, I promise.
I don't have a problem, I use the word cartoon, but that's a historical word, it's not necessarily Disney, right? So it's rather cartoonish because it is flat, but it's very clear what you're looking at. What I do appreciate is putting the date down that we were established as the county seat and taken out of Trenton.
I
So
like that too.
I do,
It's
so.
much better date than the one somebody put on there, which was
1907 is when we were,
1907.
that's when we were incorporated as a municipality, but we were established as the county seat of Hunterdon in 1758 by a vote that removed it from
It's a
Trenton, which was the
1785.
county seat of Hunterdon County from 1614 until
Mhm.
1758. There's your historical lesson for tonight.
Thank you.
Trenton was part of Hunterdon during the American Revolution. George Washington crossed the Delaware into Hunterdon County.
Right. Okay, so moving
See-
along.
Yeah, one thing I would keep in mind is from a branding and usage standpoint, you want to keep it very clean as possible to ensure that it looks clean and legible in all applications. I understand the need to, or maybe some thinking the shadows are it, but when you're starting to go into signage, t-shirts, banners, digital, postcards, whatever the application may be, you want something that is a little bit more flat. Number one, it's more cost effective when you start going to printing. Number two, it's cleaner and more legible. So please keep that perspective as we go through some of these color options on the feedback we received early on from Robin and team, as well as some of our design expertise to make sure you had something that could actually last past, all of our generation here, that can give them something clean that they can use for the long term, and having a file that will be legible and readable for long term on reproduction.
I appreciate that professional, Michelle, thank you.
Absolutely.
Can I just ask one question before we get rid of the picture on the screen? So I get it. I think it looks much cleaner than the old one, of course, and like you're saying, simplified and recognizable. The only thing I want to point out, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, but the leftmost column with the steps coming down, like when you're actually looking at it, there's actually more of like a a rock bulge out and you don't actually see all the steps. I don't know if that's something before it's plastered all over town that could maybe be more accurate.
Okay.
Get it again.
You said the leftmost column, I'm just taking some notes here.
Yeah, the leftmost column, like at the bottom where you see like all the different little step downs of the steps. It's
Right.
not actually like that if you look at like a picture. I don't know if you'd be able to tell on my screen, but like there's
Yeah,
It's true, it's
it's
more
stone.
stone.
you know,
I'll
yeah.
send you a picture of what we're looking at, Nichelle, on the wall.
No, I saw it on our screen. We have tons of pictures of the building, so I will circle it, highlight it, and say we need to have more of a pronunciation on that section.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
So next slide.
This is just more close up, so you can kind of get a little close up noted here that we
Yeah.
will tweak that section there. And here's some additional color options. And again, when you're comfortable with a color palette, we will put all of this in a style guide, including all the fonts, the colors that you select, and making sure that you have at least a one-pager style guide for the seal that can then be sent out to whoever's going to be reproducing this for you in any shape, form, or facet.
That cornflower blue is just too bright. It's like if you try to match our flag, it's a better color.
We will play with the color. We just wanted to,
Yeah.
don't worry, we're just showing you some things.
You know, they're very, the brown one's very attractive.
Okay, thank you. What do we have next?
Very readable too. The brown one's very readable.
Readable, it is.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing, is that it's readable across all platforms, not just on your screen, but on signs, on printouts, on banners, on letterhead, all of that. You want it to make sure it's pop and it's legible. And now we're going into what we call in environment, how it would look if we just use kind of the black and white version. We just did the black and white version as mock-ups for tonight. And we went through a couple of blues as just mock-ups for the signs. The signs as well, we're not married to the font. If you want to go with a more modern font, we use the current font that you have now for the signs, just for consistency. But all of those things are subjective from an aesthetic standpoint. For us, it's really about the legibility and making sure that people can read from a distance.
And one thing, in that slide on the right-hand side, which has the old nomenclature verbiage, there is also a screened back ghosted cupola that is not going to be in the future signs. It'll be flat, like the one that says "Welcome to Flemington."
Yeah.
Now, and I
That
do
one right here. Yeah, that'll be removed.
that we have 30 signs, which at this size is a little bit overkill for a time where most people follow directions in their car, on their phone, you know what I mean? It's people aren't looking for the signs to tell them where to go. So some number of the signs where it might be actually too chaotic to have, 5 signs at a corner and you're trying to see around them. We may remove a couple. We may also have some that just say, "Welcome to Flemington." Thank you for visiting Flemington. Just basic, this is where you are. Welcome to the Circle Shopping District. Welcome to the Sangle Arts and Cultural District. There was a lot of redundancy of having multiple signs really close to each other that kind of said the same thing. And they're big. These signs happen to be a really large scale. So, okay.
This
Some
is just
more-
another blue option. We just gave some different gradients of blue just for this exercise and mock-ups, but again, the colors are subjective. We just want to make sure they read well in daytime and at nighttime.
That's a nice blue.
No,
Yeah, that's a better blue.
That's a
read
very-
it.
that's
We
a
really
nice
like
blue.
this blue.
That's a nice,
Mhm. This one pops.
Well, yeah, because you can read
all
it.
over.
It's very readable. And the other thing, the past signs were not totally ADA compliant.
Correct.
We are working with Natalie at Cultural and Heritage to make sure, and it's some help from the county to make sure that our signs are totally ADA compliant.
In what manner exactly? Were they not?
The arrows that were used were not exactly the recommended position of the arrows, and we've also, this is like our third design foray. Some of the designs that we got in the past were very design heavy and not ADA compliance and signs is really very simple. It's point sizes, it's readable fonts. I think
Mhm.
no
Correct.
serifs, it's a whole lot of stuff that we will make sure we comply with. Like the sign, the arrows, this is not the recommended way to do arrows. Moving along. But we do love the color.
Oh, that's cute.
That's what I was like.
Yeah,
They're gonna be
I know.
Braille, yes.
Braille with the ladder.
Braille
Oh,
on it.
good.
And just to give you a little bit more education on ADA compliant sign, the font must be a sans serif font. So currently, these are all serif fonts. So we would switch to a sans serif font for that. And that's one of the things that will help us make it ADA compliant. And for those that don't know, sans serif means these little wings that are on the edges of the letters. They don't exist in sans serif font. So if you look at a font like Arial, if you will, that a lot of people have on their computers, that is a sans serif font. These are all serif fonts, but you having a sans serif font without all the little hooks and things on it, and you have a straight font, kind of more like the block letters, that is ADA compliant, to Robin's reference.
So we have a sign on Walter Ferrand. It's green. It's really
It's
distressed.
hard to read.
It's hard to read. It's dark. It's a dark green that has faded lettering. We could, this seal is recessed, I think, in the drawing. But we have seen seals where it actually stands out from the sign. It's really, there's lots of different ways to, and this sign posts they look a little tired if you look at it really closely, but you know, we would like to replace the one at Walter Ferrand. There was some permitting done for a sign at the Route 12 circle. We've talked about putting a sign near the
Years ago.
police station, yeah.
Did you get a grant for that?
It was
No, it
before,
was a
it's
bid.
way before my
It was a
time,
bid that
but
did-
yes, there was a
Long
grant.
Was all that money spent?
I don't think they ever got grant money for it. I don't know. It's before my.
They
time.
really only did the landscaping a portion of that work. They did spend some of that money, just the landscaping.
But we do have money
Yeah.
put away for gateway signs and, you know, the sooner we get them, the better it will feel. Is that our last?
The
one?
last slide. Yep, that's the last mock-up.
So, you know, we're driving in a blue lane. Sounds like we got some feedback about what people like. We're open to more comments about the colorization and different palettes we can try. But we want you to know that we will soon have something very clean. Some of the signs, like if we wanted to just put up some welcome signs to start, we can do those. We're still looking at what icon we use for the Stangle Arts and Cultural District, because we've talked about maybe those should have a different icon at the top. Maybe those should have the same icon but have a different color. So we will
Then you
come
said it was
back.
gonna be an orange sign.
What's that?
I thought you said it was gonna be an orange sign.
Orange?
No.
Didn't you say orange for the way?
I think she was just color coding them for the conversation.
Cause we didn't see
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah,
picture,
yeah.
so,
No, that was just tabs on. the
oh,
sheet.
okay, yeah, cause we
Yeah,
didn't
I'm
see.
sorry. about
Okay,
that.
all right.
No, when you look at where the 30 signs are, there's really like a majority of them, the majority of them are on Main Street. You know, there is a very clear presence on the Circle Highway District. Where I have to say, you know, it's hard just to follow the traffic signs, you know, there's a lot of wayfinding around there. Sometimes maybe adds to the visual confusion of how do I get around this circle or, you know, they're in some strange places too. Where they were put was other signs kind of cropped up around them. So it's, you know, you have to reevaluate these things. So we will have a closer reevaluation. We just wanted to show you our progress. Give you a clean seal of something that is workable and get your feedback.
Very, very quickly, Robin.
Yes.
I meant to mention this morning, you probably already know, the Stangle Arts Center sign, all the letters are falling off.
Oh, yes, we know.
Okay, and as far as branding it separately, I think that I wanna make sure that we're treating Main Street and Stangle equally, and that I would like to see consistency with color and font on any sign that's on Stangle.
I totally
versus
agree.
theirs. I think we need to be consistent.
Everything will, no, we're not doing a different look and feel for the different areas.
I mean, the logo too.
Yeah. But we do want, as I've said for a couple of years, we do want to brand the 3 commercial districts with their own identity,
That's fine.
their own look and feel, their own sort of narrative. Because it's healthier, they're healthier that way. It's very hard for people to understand that we have 3 business districts, and honestly, if we could get people to know that when you come here, you can get a cup of coffee here, take an art class there, and then, you know, pick up something big box that you need on your way home. And we were sharing customers better, but having them feel like it's one borough and they're patronizing the various things that we have to offer. It's a better experience for our retailers and it's a better experience for the customer.
Yeah, and what we're working on is for the 3 business districts now, we've kind of confirmed what the actual verbiage will be. We're doing we're in the midst of the middle of our logo exploratory and what we call kind of iconography. So it's mostly dependent on the color and very simplified elements inside. So each district would have its own icon, but all the icons would look as part of the same family. So that's what we're working on now to make sure there's recognizable icons as best practices when you're doing this type of exercise, that each business district gets its own recognizable icon, but when you see them, you can still see all 3 icons together that represent all the 3 business districts of the borough. And that's what we're currently working on. We're in iteration number 2 before we send that out to you.
Advertising and a marketing standpoint, that absolutely does work. It does work.
Correct.
You combine it all together, people don't recognize it, they don't get confused, and it's all discombobulated, right? I think separating it, and there is a common thread throughout. That's
Correct.
the common thread, but there's a distinction between this and this and this, and everybody has it's kind of like everybody has the same identity, but they also share something that's special about them. Yeah, I agree.
Correct.
So, you know, for example, from a practical perspective, we do this holiday shopping passport. The first prize is a $250 gift certificate to any store you want to us to buy you a gift certificate from. in the borough. And we did this so that people could actually have a list of all the shops in their hands as they were thinking about where am I gonna go shopping, where do I buy a present? So this year, after talking to Nichelle, it used to be you had to have 10 receipts and we didn't care where they were from. It could be Burger King, Staples, and Alchemy Coffee. It could be your hair salon. This year, we changed it to you have to have one receipt from each of the 3 business areas. So if you get 3 receipts, you can, from the Circle Shopping District, Stangle Arts and Cultural, and Main Street, if you shop in 3 places, you can win $250 just for giving us a copy of 3 receipts. We have no price restriction. You could spend $5 and be entered, because what we're really trying to do is to get people to go to all 3. So, and just as a matter of fact, we did take out, we took out dentists and medical and banks from our list, even though some of that would make a good holiday present, depending on what it is. But for Main Street, we have 69 retail businesses, meaning you're going in and you're paying before you walk out.
Main Street includes mine, Capner.
We say
That's
surrounding, we say surrounding areas, so
Okay.
like,
All the side streets,
yeah.
Bloomfield Avenue.
Bloomfield Ave. Yep, we draw the line for highway at Broad Street, so, you know, Teresa's Cafe, we consider not highway, but Capilano's is highway, just because of the way it feels. But for Stangle, we have 45 businesses, so 69 businesses on Main Street and off side streets. 45 businesses for the Stangle Arts and Cultural District. That does, we do include Fulper, Central Ave in that. And then the highway is a total of 79 businesses, which isn't that much more than Main Street when you think about it. But 23 of those are in the shops, you know, and the shops is a very contained environment. So there's 56 businesses up at the Circle Highway shopping plazas and 23 plus 23 at the shops. And that is a total of 216, what we're calling retail for the purpose of holiday shopping. So it's a lot to promote, you know, 216 businesses. You have to break it down somehow, and and because they're not right next to each other, you like really have to give people a good map to find all this great retail.
So I'm gonna segue at this point.
Yes.
We have members of Girl Scout Troop 8050 here.
Yes.
Cool. So Arya, who is on the far end, is my neighbor. She popped over yesterday for an uninvited visit to let me know that her troop, their juniors, are interested in doing a long-serving community project to help the business community.
Nice.
My word, not theirs, Wayfind, and have recognition, especially for the side street businesses. Is that right, Arya? Do you want to introduce your friends here, your members of your troop?
This is Ella and this is
Nice to meet you.
So I said, you couldn't be more timely, Arya, because you know we're talking about this tomorrow night. Can you come? So they're here because they are looking to do a community project for their troop that will have meaning and last for the business community.
Fantastic. Thank
So,
you so much.
Can you work with them and
Gladly.
and have them work with you
Yeah.
and do something for the town that is meaningful for our businesses?
I can't wait to hear your ideas. And sure, let's get together and work it out.
And full disclosure, Ella and I also talked about this.
Okay, good.
As well.
Well, I'm glad there's been a
Right.
lot of engagement with everyone in the room, and we'll look forward to working together.
Good for you
Awesome.
guys, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you. Do I get a badge though? 'Cause I still have my vest and I would like another, I'd like a new one. Are we good?
I think we're good, right?
Okay, Michelle, any last comments?
No, thanks for spending some time with us. I'm excited to, be able to always see you all, and I'll put my bid in for a box of cookies from the young ladies.
Public, I just need your name and address for the record for Carla.
Okay.
You need to speak in our microphone, otherwise.
I apologize.
Yeah, they can't hear you.
Hello, I am a new person who's come to Flemington. I'm from Middlesex County. Thank you very much. I was the resident artist in my last town, which was Spotswood, and I have a studio on my property as well. And it was going from Main Street to DeVoe and then to mine. And then my business was Mia Art. We found Mine Street here in Flemington, which means Mia means mine in Italian. So we moved to Mine Street. So now it's going to be called Mia Art Mine, but it's on Mine Street. It's not going to be any of these locations. I'm also wondering about zoning. We purchased for it to be a teaching environment. And I'm worried about zoning, if I'm going to be able to have small classes in that. But that's another story for another day.
Can you, say your name, please?
Maria Savarese,
Hold on.
Maria, S as in Sam, A, V as in Victor, AR, E as in Edward, S as in Sam, E.
Okay, thank you.
Roy told me to come. So yeah, so just about like where I would fall into any of these signages that's happening. I know that I have a sign I'm about to put up on my property that matches your signage.
Make
With
sure
the,
you go through zoning and permitting.
yeah, everything's already been zoned. It was the pre-permitted sign.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just have to do this CCO to get that. Where the mine was, correct. The mine, so yeah, so now Mia Art Mine.
Got it.
So that's where, that was my question, is about where I would fit into any of these circles, or if I'm just gonna be an extra piece of the community that's not needed, and that's okay too.
No one's extra. It's not needed. We need everybody.
I mean, there's a lot of me here, a lot of what I do is here already.
A lot of all of us here, but the one piece of signage we didn't talk about is trying to do some vertical blade signs that point to some of the streets that have mixed businesses on them, like Main Street, off Main Street, there's Bloomfield. Having a little blade that's like they have in Lambertville. You have to have a lot of height to do it. It has to be, I think, 13 feet over at my head, over everybody's head. But I think Mine Street, some of the streets that have businesses, we should try to also indicate that there's businesses down there. We won't be able to indicate every business, but we can at least indicate that there's other businesses.
I keep, my backyard is with the bookstore's backyard, and then with the Damalina we've merged, so yeah.
Awesome.
Maybe a little
Welcome
section.
to the neighborhood. Okay. So, we're done, Michelle? I think we will, I'll send a request for more feedback and we'll come back and show you our progress.
Great, talk to these guys.
Awesome.
Robin.
Yes, we will. Thank you
Right.
very much
Michelle.
for all your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right.
Yes.
You do not feel obligated to sit through this entire meeting.
Yeah. By the time, right?
It's not room to leave.
It's bedtime. Thank you so much.
Bye. Come around when you're so
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome to Borough.
All right.
We will come back.
Thank you. All right, we're back in the agenda, item number 7, which is the mayor's report. I have a couple of things to report on, and I was hoping Brandon's gonna be here tonight, because I wanna set, first of all, I wanna set a council retreat, as I did last year, for everybody to get together with all the department heads. on a Saturday in January to just talk about Title 40 and the specifics of what the departments do. And I'm looking at either January 11th or the 18th.
18.
The 18th?
You can't do the 18th.
Can't do the 11th.
I'm out, yeah.
How's the 11th? I'd
I
rather
can't
do
do
it.
the 11th.
You can't do the 11th? I hate pushing it really late in January, but we could do the, what is that, the 18th, is it the 29th, is that the Saturday?
The 25th is the next.
Saturday before, yes, what about the 25th?
I can do that.
The 25th, Trent,
Yeah, yeah. anyway.
Carla, 25, Chris, 25,
I might be away. I'm not again.
you don't know
Maybe
yet?
might have surgery, I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll tentatively set it to January 25th
Okay.
and see what happens, okay, that's thing one. Thing two, which is the most complicated thing on my list, which is, banners. So, yeah, I'm gonna jump right into that fire. So, you know, the council spent time doing a lot of due diligence on temporary signage. And, we purposefully did not touch banners because we were waiting, for hardware for a new banner system across Main Street. So we did not include banners in our temporary signage ordinance. And since then, we've been having issues with, Aunt Millie's temporary banner, regarding her opening. We did say, and, you know, we did say that, you know, it could be up for so many weeks and then they, for $50 or whatever it was, and then they could pay again and again and again, and it just had to say roughly when they were gonna start. So we've been having some issues. I'm gonna just turn this over to our attorney because he's really taken the lead on dealing, with trying to,
A relatively
help them.
simple issue.
it is a very relatively
Became
simple-
complex, now I'm gonna make it simple for you all.
Right,
So, your ordinance has two parts, signs, banners. Signs you did, we spent a lot of time in this room doing the signs. The banners, there are certain technical aspects with the banner, right? Part of it, because you hang your banner across Main Street, Mayor, correct?
well, that was our interpretation of a banner, I think, when we were talking about the site.
So, we held off on doing that. That part of the ordinance still needs cleanup, we are waiting on certain aspects, which we shall hopefully have in the first quarter of next year. In the meantime, Millie's would like to hang their banner, or he's hung it, see it, it is. There is a dispute as to whether it would be a sign under the ordinance that you passed, or a banner, because banner is not defined in the ordinance, and there are some conflicting definitions. You may recall, the council specifically contemplated Millie's the night of the discussion, Robin came up here and talked. We added a clause in your licensing part for that specific use, the 60-day runway to open, right? So I've read a resolution which we'll distribute probably before we go, Mayor, before we go into executive, and we'll come out and vote on it, just so the council can take a quick look at it, granting Aunt Millie's relief.
Right.
So they can keep their sign up for and be in compliance with our ordinance. And we will look to remedy and amend your banner ordinance, which I expect we will do in the first quarter.
Right, so the council has the power to basically overrule
You can grant relief.
anybody technically reviewing this.
You can grant, well, let's parse it, to Mayor. You can grant relief from the strictures of your own ordinance, by resolution, as long as a couple things are met. One, it cannot conflict with any state or county, typically state regulation or federal regulation, but typically state regulation. So if there was a state code, I couldn't do that, right? This is your regulation, right? And the resolution must state in detail the reasoning for the relief granted, which I've done. As long as those two strictures are met, it can be done. Courts are open if anyone has a problem with it. I don't think we'll see any lines or Millie's that just wants to hang it down. So you'll have a resolution. Mayor, you and I spoke about this on Friday, so it's a relatively late breaking habit for you guys. I'll email it to Carla, she can print it. My suggestion would be, when executive distribute it, come out of executive, vote on it. I doubt there will be much problems with it. It's a very benign thing, but it will give the Millie's a bit of a
Really.
clarity, right?
Yes. And then we'll proceed next year in working on cleaning up whatever language we need to clean up.
So, yeah, it's trying to, they should not be the original sign ordinance was done, that 60-day provision was put in for them. At that time, they didn't know that their square footage would be what it is, which is okay, but we gotta give them some relief. So,
Right.
we talked about a sign that night, we didn't talk about a certain square
Does
footage.
anybody have an issue with that? Everybody's good, okay,
It's like I said, it's a simple issue that became complicated, and again, a little bit of background to make it simple. Right, this resolution will have.
right.
That's okay.
Finally, I just wanna do a parking committee update for everybody. Because there are ordinances that are appearing tonight for introduction, so the parking committee, you know, we've been hearing all these complaints about Main Street. And, we tasked, Jay Troutman, our traffic consultant, to take a look at Main Street plus, the request for a three-way stop, on Broad Street at Bloomfield Avenue, by some of the residents. So, as well as the, flashing light that, Councilman Levitt brought to my attention or all of our attentions, I'm not really sure. So, Jay did look at comprehensively. First of all, he immediately blessed the three-way at Bloomfield and Broad to slow down the speeding that's occurring, down in that part of Broad. So then he reviewed, all of Main Street. And, has opined that there should be 2 three-way stops, one at Park and Mine, and one at Stengel and Mine. He felt that Central Avenue was too close to the one at Park, but Stengel was appropriate to have a three-way stop, or all-way stop. I think that the ordinance title says 4-way, but they're all three-way. Or it could say all-way. So there are 3 ordinances for introduction tonight on the agenda. One for Bloomfield and Broad, as an all-way, Park and Mine as an all-way, and Stengel and Mine as an all-way. Jay also looked at, the flashing lights that, are operator required. If you're walking and you need to cross the street, you press the button and they start flashing, so drivers know somebody is about to cross the sidewalk. He identified 3 locations for those. One at Central Avenue on Mine, these are all Mine Street, one at Central Avenue. One at,
This isn't right,
what is it, right?
Main Street.
No, that's not right, it's. Okay. One at Central Avenue in Mine, one at Academy in Academy in Mine. And the third one all the way down at, Walnut Brook and Mine, which gets people to cross to the church, to the Catholic Church. Those flashing lights run $36,500 a piece. It was felt by the parking committee that perhaps the one at Central Avenue could be paid for by the FCP because it is for the business district. I have a call into Go Hunterdon to see if there's a grant to get money for the other 2 or all 3. So I'm waiting to hear back from Tara about money for the others, because we're talking about, you know, over $100,000 in next year's budget for these, if we want to proceed with it. But it's not just the lights, the sidewalks, none of the sidewalks are handicapped ADA. So, and the one at Walnut Brook, according to Jay's report, is all broken up and really needs to be fixed. Now, we have DOT money to do from the bridge, up at the Route 12 circle, down a ways, and can probably get, you know, put into that, doing the ADA compliance and the new sidewalk area there to fix that all up. When we get ready to do that, that's, you know, we're gonna be starting that work sometime in the winter. Not work, but the financial side of this, because we of course wanna do the 100-year-old sewer lines that are underneath there, the 100-year-old water lines that are underneath there, and any galvanized connections as well. So that project's, we have the money just to do the road right now, but it should be comprehensive. If we're gonna put in these reticulating flashing lights, we should be doing them at the same time. And maybe working our way down, because like I said, the sidewalks have to be, repaired and made ADA compliant. So that's, the first thing that is, I think it's, I know a lot of people who live on Line Street have been complaining about it for a long time. It'll slow down. It'll definitely slow down traffic, somewhat as you get closer to town, which is a good thing. Since that is the street with the largest amount of speeding and the highest speeds in the borough. The parking committee also has been fielding a lot of complaints about parking issues. And of course, with the opening of the hotel and all the apartments slated for next year, they are recommending residential overnight parking, residential parking only, and have been looking at new systems that would do permitting for that, for visitor passes. We're not quite there, ready to present anything to the council yet, because we're still working on policy recommendations as far as how many residential or visitor parking spaces each house would be granted. But there are a lot of problems in town with parking now, especially being driven by some of the apartment complexes that do not have enough parking on site, and they're parking on side streets and in neighbors' driveways in front of mailboxes, thank you. On people's, overhanging into their lawns. I mean, it's becoming very difficult. Also, at one of our early meetings next year, either the first business meeting in January or February, Jay will be here to present to the council the route he is recommending to ensure what the public was promised about Union Hotel traffic, making it flow onto the main roads and not through side streets. So he developed quite a few months ago a route that would not compromise the residential neighborhoods, and with a lot of additional traffic that wasn't counted on. And he's gonna present that, like I said, we'll have him here either at the end of January or the beginning of February to present that, and then get an ordinance if it's amenable to the council, get an ordinance done and in place before the hotel opens, so that the residents get used to a new route. It's not significant changes, it's just a few minor tweaks to some current roads. And that's it, that's my report. Gonna start with Council President Wong.
Hi, good evening. Got a couple of things here. Office of Emergency Management, FEMA Disaster Preparedness Month, and some of the topics are winter weather preparedness, encouraging residents to prepare for severe weather by assembling emergency kits, planning for power outages, and ensuring homes are winterized. Holiday fire safety, promoting fire safety tips such as monitoring holiday decorations, practicing safe cooking habits, and ensuring smoke detectors are functional. Also, the annual turkey trot is going to be Thursday, November 28th. Please note the following traffic updates. Road closures are starting at 7:30 a.m. and continue until approximately noon. Townwide closures, and highly affected areas will be Broad Street, East Main, Park Avenue, Bunnell Street, Mine Street, Main Street, and secondary roads within the closure zones. Resident assistance. Residents impacted by closures are encouraged to contact the department, police department, I should say, at 908-782-3434 before race day to arrange alternative parking or discuss entry and exit strategies. The 100 Holiday Parade is Saturday, December 7th. Holiday Parade will be held at 5 p.m. on the 7th. Road closures there, portions of East Main, North Main, and the north end of Main Street will close starting at 2 p.m. Residents can assist in closures. They should contact Flemington Police at the non-emergency number, which I said before, for assistance. Fire this Friday and Saturday, the fire department will be holding a fundraising coin toss in the intersection of Church Street and Main. And the squad, I don't have a ton of details, but I will have more to say, but they have been busy as they were the last month. And that's my report.
Thank you. Council Vice President Rossetti.
Thanks, Mayor. Everything was pretty much status quo at the Shade Tree meeting couple weeks ago, so nothing to report there. I did want to piggyback on your traffic topics, Mayor. If the traffic team could somehow look at one other area in town where there's a safety concern. I almost witnessed a really severe accident on the circle today. When you're going on the 31202 circle, getting onto 31 North, like heading up towards the Wendy's and the Wawa, those lanes, like you can go right or left in those lanes. And a car was trying to go onto 31 North and a truck was trying to go around the circle, and it was like really, really close. I've seen other close calls, but this was like really, my heart stopped for a second. You know, it was really serious. So I don't know if that's something we can look at because it's a dangerous situation for sure.
Keith and I actually were talking about this earlier this week, that exact. And that is, that the circle, you know, we're talking about the fact that there are less accidents now on the circle than before the improvements, because the visibility is so much better, except in that location. But you just.
Yeah. I don't know if it means, you know, we have to say, okay, the right lane has to go on 31 and can't continue around the circle, but something is not working there.
Really a state issue, but we just sent a letter, the parking committee, I just signed a letter that Jay wrote to the state, asking the state to consider changing the timing for the left turn on Route 31 to onto Church Street, because it's such a short light. It only lets 7 cars get through. So we just sent them a letter saying, can you take a look at that timing, please? And give us more. I mean, Jay had counts and everything that he included. So we're hoping, there's a lot of stuff we're doing, like, we have the timing counts, the original timing counts from 2010 for the traffic light on North Main and Ferran Boulevard now. Jay is reprogramming that light because I guess some lightning or something knocked the timing out. So we're putting that timing back so more cars can get through. We're doing that on Route 31 and Church Street. So we can certainly have Jay take a look at that circle to make some kind of recommendation to the state, whether it's signage or, I mean, it's really clear who's got the yield on that, but.
Yeah, but it's not even about the yield, because everyone is already moving at that point, right? It's where you're either exiting the circle or staying on the circle, and there's no yield sign at that point where you're getting onto 31 North. So, it just comes into the situation where the right lane and the left lane can both choose to go left or right. And when not everyone is going in the same way, they cross paths.
Yep, I was in a DOT meeting, I want to say 4 years ago with a representative of the DOT, and they actually expressed willingness to consider repainting that. So I think just like we wrote the letter to the DOT about the church in 31, if we as the traffic committee write a letter about that, reminding them that they were willing to look at repainting, because it literally will solve a lot of problems if they would just even start with the repainting, which is cheap. They were willing 4 years ago. I think they should be willing again to at least reconsider.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you why I was in that meeting. I don't remember. I think it had to do with the shops.
Anything else, Council Vice President?
Oh, that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, so noted. I got notes on it. I even just drew myself a picture. All right, Councilwoman Engelhardt.
Okay, council report, high school Board of Ed is tonight, simultaneous to this meeting, so go ahead and check their meeting out when you're done here. Flemington Raritan School District, our K-8 district, their next meeting is December 19th at 7 p.m. at JPK's. Sam Fleming House, their monthly house tours are on December 15th, 5 Bunnell Street. In addition, I want to thank the Shade Tree Commission for helping them replace a tree. And there was we replaced the fence along the property line, and in the front a couple years ago during a storm, one of the trees fell and broke the fence. So that was also repaired, and I want to thank the DPW and the Shade Tree Commission for assisting Sam Fleming with that. Also last week I did attend the League of Municipalities in Atlantic City, and really have attended a lot of great sessions. In particular, I really enjoyed and hope to, you know, get some, have it influence, some of my decisions over the next year and suggestions over the next year. Specifically, I, attended, public transportation sessions, digital, equity goal, sessions, development sessions, engaging with the film and TV industry and women in government. I did want to thank the borough for the opportunity to attend,
Thank you.
and that's it.
Thank you very much. Councilwoman Pissarro.
Or especially, I'm Katie, guys, thank you.
Councilman Levitt.
Let's see, there's an HBC meeting last week, we have one update and, one approval. Just as a general public announcement, and a reminder, I suppose, if you do live in the borough, or own a business, or own any property in the historic district, which is about 65% of the town, please file an application for the HBC before making any exterior modifications. While I'm not a snitch or a narc of any kind, nor am I qualified to make the determination regarding violations of the ordinance, I've seen a number of improvements in and around town that I don't recall seeing an application for within the past year. So if that applies to you, we have a nice, easy to use online form. Meetings are once a month and the board is quite friendly. So that's my report this week.
Thank you very much. Councilman Parker.
Yeah, a couple of things, so, I did attend the League of Municipalities as well, and probably one of the best ones I've attended. And the reason is I spent a lot of time talking to mayors of other towns, people on the planning board of other towns, council people of other towns, so it was just such a great education. I got to ask a lot of questions that I normally would not have asked, and just based upon the experience of what we're having here and just serving on this, serving on the council. So I got a lot of good advice and a lot of good numbers that I can call up. So that's always a good thing. I think for me, the league is just, as opposed to just going to the sessions, I think you get so much more benefit out of meeting other people from other towns and other levels, whether it's senators or Congress people or whatever the case may be. And I was lucky enough to engage with each one of those levels throughout the meeting. Also, I did run into when we're talking about banners, there is a new banner system. What is passe now is doing banners across one from building to building, because it's so manual, the manual labor, and it's not safe, and it's no guarantee that it's gonna stay up. So there is a company that has banners that's on the poles, and Susan, I brought Susan over to take and try.
Who is this?
Susan.
Brandon, I think.
Yeah, it takes 5 minutes to put it up, and it's done by almost like a drill. So I do have some information that I'm gonna present it to FCP and also to DPW, because I think this is the answer.
You say it goes on the poles, does it go on what, existing poles or it's on?
Goes on existing poles.
Existing poles.
Existing poles, yep.
Great.
Yep, and you just put this thing in and it goes up, and it can be a pretty long banner as well, depending on how high the poles are. But they actually do the manufacturing of the banners. If we want them to, we can do our own, but they can do it as well. The price is unbelievably, it's unbelievable. It's so good. It was unbelievable.
Similar
right?
company to those big tall ones that, you know, that we have around town a little bit now, but just kind of on steroids. It was very
Yeah,
cool.
it's very cool. So anyway, we are engaging them. I'm going to have them sit with Mike and as well as you, Robin, to go over what they look like and hope it and come to council and let them see it as well. The other thing is the newsletter is out finally. So that's out, and it will be, Carla, we can put it up on the website tomorrow, maybe tomorrow or the next day.
Where can people find one, Tony?
Well, they're gonna be distributed amongst several of the same stores, like Sage and The Corner and some places on the highway. So Robin gave me a list. It's the same places. I don't know off the top of my head all of them, but they'll be on between Main Street and Circle.
We'll have a good chunk of them out here.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's us, the same thing that I asked for last time, if each of the council people can just take a chunk of them and just pass them out in their neighborhoods, that would work as well, because we don't have the money to do it we don't have the budget to do it in mail, which would actually be much more efficient and much better to get the word out, but it is what it is, we'll work within our confidence. The police, we are swearing in a police on the 2nd, just as a reminder, at 1 o'clock. His last name is Castro. He is, again, really great guy. I think we're gonna really benefit from his skill set. I will definitely be here with him to be swearing in with him. And today we met with the landlords, and this has been a big thing I've talked about this for weeks, and Susan was there.
I was
we-
there as well.
Yeah, and Adrian was there
Good.
and we had a great turnout, but here's what I thought was even better. We had a great discussion. It was a great discussion. It wasn't that people were, but it was really it was insightful. It was engaging, and a lot of them came up with really great ideas and how to move this whole thing forward. Especially in terms of the zoning a little bit. So I do think it can't be the last discussion. I think this is a way to keep engaging. When I say engaging the community also includes businesses. And we can't separate the community and businesses, because without businesses, we have we just have the community, that's it. So I just think that it was very productive. And one of the things they asked for is, they want this to happen again. They want an open dialogue for input. And so that's one of the things that we'll have Robin coordinate so that can be done as well. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. That's everybody. All right, at the first public comment session, anybody from the public wishing to comment, have to come up to the microphone. I need your last name and an address, and you have 3 minutes. Okay.
Tony Previtt, 45 North Main Street, Flemington. The last council meeting that I attended here, I kind of mentioned some of the things that were going on in and around my neighborhood, or his homes, this and that. It would seem like there's a lot of rental property. They're accumulating a lot of rubbish, okay, in the yards. Neighbor right next to me, somehow they ended up with a large trampoline, I mean, really large, okay? And I guess they used it for a day or two, and now it's in the backyard. That's my backyard, and it's laying up against my fence. You have to see some of this stuff to believe it. Okay, if this is nearby my house, I don't want to make problems for my neighbors. And but somebody has to come out and take a look at the situation. This is like I kind of mentioned a couple of months ago about a dumpster day, maybe over at the abandoned Agway property, where maybe one of the large carvers, LMR, can donate a dumpster.
Yeah, I did follow up on that, and it's prohibitively expensive for the borough. So we're getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
I thought maybe they gratis work for the borough or whatever, but it's getting to be a problem.
Have you called our property maintenance officer about it?
Well, when I was here at the last meeting, I thought basically maybe I might get a phone call or something like that. I really didn't have time. But I would like maybe somebody to look into that from the borough, if you could,
Are you asking me to have our property maintenance officer go reach out to you?
well, again.
I'm happy to do that.
I don't know who's in charge of,
Anybody can call him.
they're-
His number is right on our website.
They're pretty busy. And in effect, on the north end of town overall, I might like to have somebody from the council do a walk through in this neighborhood of mine. Because between things that are going on, bicycles coming down the sidewalk, trash emanating from Steve's store. There's a small trash container in front of my property, which I personally have to empty more often than not because of the amount of trash that's, accumulating very quickly. Again, Steve's
Did you
store,
put that there because you asked for one?
yes, I did.
Okay.
And it has to be, I think, a
Okay.
little larger, and there has to be
Right.
another one because it's just overflowing. Obviously, people don't care to do that, trash ends up on my wall, on the sidewalk, etc. I've been cleaning up the leaves, quite often because of the time of year. But then again, I'm also out there every day, people placing aluminum cans on the top of my wall, etc., etc. I wish Steve's store was right up at the top of Hunter Hills. It'd be more convenient, it'd probably be a more modern store. You could do something with that triangle of property there that's just, it's just,
Private property.
again, it's private property, nothing else is going on in terms of the old Agway property, Global, we got little Elvis deteriorating on the wall. It's a flood zone, I try to remain positive this time of year, but again, I'm just like, hey, I'll call the property manager, I'll call-
Yeah, I'll call him for you. Do you wanna
Okay, well,
call
if you
him?
wanna do that, I thank you, but again, if anybody on council wanna walk this neighborhood, I kindly point out to you some of the things that have been going on there. And some of the things that haven't been going on there for years. It's great that some of these other properties are being developed, things are moving and shaking downtown. But really, to have Steve's store the only business on that side of town, on the welcoming end of Flemington there, I think we're gonna have to get on the stick here and start getting something done. If nothing can happen to Global Ag because of the water situation there, the runoff. Just make it green, make it
Things
a
can
park.
happen at Global Ag, it's just what the redeveloper originally proposed and was approved for by the council in 2022. No longer can, because the stormwater rules changed in July of 2023,
Oh, yeah.
and neither site had their permits in place.
Yeah, again, I don't know what the red tape is, but it would seem like a developer would be turned off with that area, flood zone.
They're not.
Where it is, but it just seems like everything is dead on this side of town. And I'm trying to improve my property, I'm trying to make my property, more, just make upgrades. And nothing else is going on there, and again, I'm still picking up trash. Traffic is moving, I got people coming down the sidewalks, on these electric bicycles. Again, it's. And then, I see all these other streets, stop sign here, stop sign there. Flashing lights. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's a little bit of overkill. I mean, I drive a 5-speed Fiat, my town car, yeah, my 5-speed Fiat is a town car. But I'm telling you what, in the end, the only thing that's gonna solve this possible safety issues with everybody, that come out of their houses every morning and, there's a lot of risks out there. But again, you'll have a smart car, and once you enter Flemington, it won't allow you to go over 25 miles an hour. That's, well, I'm just saying,
No, I agree.
I'm just saying, when I drive like I'm going somewhere.
Yeah.
I obey the speed limit, plus or
I
minus.
need you to wrap up. You can
But-
hang out for the next one, the next 3-minute comments.
But again, okay, all right, but again, there's some of my.
Okay,
some of
thank
my-
you, I got it all down. Anybody else in the public?
I'll be really quick.
That was quick, I thought.
So,
Yeah,
I went over the speed limit.
we're
I mean, sorry.
entering our holiday season. I really need to tell you that everyone needs to shop small. We have small businesses. Our businesses are struggling in a way that they haven't struggled before. There are very few people on the streets, there's very few people shopping, there's very few people actually making transactions. It's really hard. It's a really hard time. And they're really depressed and nervous about this season. So Shop Small Saturday, which is weirdly an American Express holiday, We apply, we're a champion, we're considered a champion group. They send us all kinds of marketing materials to distribute to our businesses, but I really have to say, to the best of everybody's ability, what? You're looking at your watch. Please shop small. Please remember that that whatever dollars you spend on Main Street or Stangle or even at mom and pop shops on the highway, there are people and they really need your business, so.
So small business Saturdays is something I'm huge on. It's the Saturday of Thanksgiving, it's Thanksgiving and it's the Friday, Black Friday, and then it's Small Business Saturday, to be very specific. And this is something that is nationwide. It's not only for this community, it's nationwide. And saying that, to that end, it's not only Flemington that's suffering for small business, it's small business overall that are suffering right now because people are just not shopping on going into brick and mortar stores, they're shopping online. That's the big problem. And I had some conversations at the league about this as well. But I do think that if we can just push out and just keep, I wish we could have done something sooner, but we just need to keep pushing it out, that shop in Flemington, walk down the street and shop, go to every store that you can go to. I think we just have to keep saying it.
And we decided this year to start earlier and consolidate our efforts. So we do have Santa, we do have Mrs. Claus, and we also have a trolley on Shop Small Saturday, which is, usually we wait till after the parade to start doing those things. So even though Thanksgiving's late, we're starting our big holiday efforts earlier. We also have a First Friday on Main Street, which is a new monthly event. It's the first Friday of every month. It's crafts, it's sampling, it's just come into the stores and say hello. So that will be 4 to 6 before the tree lighting. And we've worked with Chris and the Chamber and the Boy Scouts and Rotary on this year's tree lighting and help
That's on the
donate.
7th?
That is on the 6th. The
That's on
tree
the
lighting's the 6th, the parade is the 7th. Right? And on the 8th, which is a Sunday, we have another holiday trolley. There's a Blizzard Bazaar over on Stangle, and the shops of Flemington are sponsoring a big Santa event with a scavenger hunt at the shops of Flemington. There's a new owner and they're really interested in working with us. And that was one of our goals at the beginning of the year, was to pay more attention to the highway plazas, and this is do more events there and do more things. So we're excited about that. We have a couple.
I need you to wrap it up.
Okay, we have a couple dates with Santa on Main Street, but it's all printed. I would love it if we could get the shopping passport in the PDF form to the residents, because we want them to, it's a list of every business in town where they can buy something. So I'll send that to whoever can help me get it
Trent
posted.
can help you.
Yes, Trent,
All
help
of
me.
us, and we can push it out.
Please
as
push
well,
it
too.
out. They can print it out at home, give us 3 gifts, 3 receipts from one from each business area
Yeah.
and win.
So I would connect with Trent. Well, that's Trent.
Great,
Send it to any of us. Yeah.
we'll do. Thanks.
Anybody else here in the room
Yeah, we should.
wishing to comment in the public comment period? I just need your. Okay, anybody online? Who's that? I see one hand up, but I can't read it.
Dennis,
Okay, Dennis, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't read that.
Dennis, you could talk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, good evening. I'm Dennis Shobe, a resident of Flemington at 194 Main Street. And I'd like to comment about potential downtown business zoning changes from a resident's perspective. I believe everyone on the council wants to strive for a vibrant, busy downtown Main Street, not just during the day, but in the evenings, both during the week and on the weekends. In addition, I believe we all would agree that we are nowhere near that vision. Currently, Main Street has a lot of vacant space, so no one can say there is a demand for office space that isn't being met in the borough. As we look to the near future with Courthouse Square, Millie's completing next year, and eventually Liberty Village, I believe there will be significant demand for retail shops, services, experiences, and restaurants, as the hotel and apartments will significantly increase the number of people looking for those services within easy walking distance. I ask that you prioritize the Flemington Borough residents, not landlords, as many of the landlords don't even reside in Flemington, and pass zoning changes that preserve important spaces throughout Main Street for retail services, experience, and restaurants on the first floor instead of new offices. I keep hearing landlords are against this. And realistically, do you really think any landlord would support any zoning change that restricts new office use facing Main Street? Why would they ever support that? You need to have the courage to support what our residents want and need. And it is not more offices facing Main Street. There are plenty of vacant spaces that can be used for offices in Victorian Plaza, the old egg auction, where both have plenty of parking. We need to have the vision consistent with the master plan that this zoning change will help fill vacant spaces for shops, services, experiences, and restaurants. Landlords should not be driving our zoning. What residents want, and remember, they are the people that voted for you. They want a vibrant downtown, and that should drive our zoning. Office use in the recommended zoning change is grandfathered on the first floor for the same profession, so there is no great risk to landlords today or their tenants. In addition, if there is a new office in the rear of the first floor, that would still be permitted as long as the office doesn't face Main Street. Let me use an example. Take the Red Vanilla building across from Courthouse Square complex. That building would make a great restaurant, retail store, or services or entertainment venue. Right now, if we don't change the ordinance, someone could go in there and open up a new office, and we would lose a prime location for what we are trying to promote to build a vibrant Main Street at night and weekends. That office location would be dark at night and weekends, which is the opposite of what we're trying to achieve. I believe if you asked residents what they want, rather than just asking landlords, they do not want more offices on Main Street, and we need to have zoning that encourages that, which the proposed ordinance does, with no new offices facing Main Street. Nothing is perfect, but we need to send a clear message to people, including entrepreneurs, that we want their retail and services, experiences, businesses, and restaurants on Main Street. I am asking everyone on the Borough Council to have the courage to take this strategic step with a vision for the future, anticipating the changes we're looking forward to, including the completion of Courthouse Square, Millie's, and Liberty Village. This will take time. I ask that you have the courage to implement the zoning changes recommended to not allow new offices on the first floor of buildings facing Main Street, and give it 3 years. If after that you feel it needs to be modified, then do it at that time. But we need to act now before this window of opportunity passes. I sincerely thank you for letting me give my comments as a very concerned resident of Flemington. We love Flemington, and these steps will help to get a much more vibrant Main Street in the near future. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else from the public?
Absolutely.
Yes, I just need your
No.
My
name.
first name is Norma Cruz Ruiz. I own, live, and have a business in
Can
Flemington.
you spell your last name for the record?
Last name Cruz, C-R-U-Z, separate, RUIC. I just wanted to comment that, as a business owner, as a property owner, as a landlord, I totally disagree with the person that I just commented before. I think that we have a lot of vacant spaces in Main Street, and I would hope that we can rethink about the no offices. I think if it's not, broken, why fix it? Focus on issues that we are lacking of, which is more businesses in town. I would love to see Main Street more busy, more vibrant, and, obviously, right now, unfortunately, that's not happening. So as a landlord's perspective, I think that, by closing our windows to offices or any other kind of a business, it's taking money from us and opportunities. I don't like to be told what to do with my business, with my building. So, I would hope that in the future, we can have more opinions from all of us. And if the residents want to be included, then that's good too. But as a landlord, as a resident, and as a business owner, I totally disagree with everything that was said before. And I will encourage for all of us to have more open opinions and to, obviously, have less restrictions on that.
Anybody else from the public?
Yeah, somebody else.
Okay, who's that?
134 Main. Go ahead.
I just need your name for the record, please.
Joseph Buccellato, B as in boy, UCCELLATO. I'm the property owner at 134 Main Street. I also have a retail shop on the first floor, the antique shop, and there's offices upstairs. Regarding what the resident was talking about, I agree with him about all the property owners want retail on Main Street. To be clear, that is a vision. We're excited about the courthouse project. We're excited to see Main Street booming with retail and restaurants. But we need to let the market decide who we can and can't rent space to. So I just would like to get on record to say I do not like the ordinance at all. But I want to encourage retail, and all the property owners from the meeting that we had this morning are of the same opinion. There wasn't one property owner at that meeting this morning that was in favor of the ordinance. We want retail. We want a vibrant Main Street, but we don't want an ordinance telling us who we can and can't rent to. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Another hand up?
Carla, you need to take the other two
We
down.
were told that we weren't allowed, I was told that we weren't speaking on the ordinance that was on the agenda.
Well, I mean, it's public comment in general, but it is not a public hearing.
Right, but there were people who were told they couldn't make public comment.
I don't know who told anybody
No,
that.
nobody said that. No one said
We
that.
had
Margaret.
some conversations
No,
about that.
no one said that. What we said was that there was not going to be, you're mixing two things up. One was, we actually encouraged people to come here. So that's absolutely not true. What the public comment was on if we were going to vote, and there was an open for public comment for the actual ordinance. That was,
Right,
so
if
that's
the
absolutely
ordinance
not
is introduced tonight, then public comment will be taken on December 9th.
Right.
This is the public comment period for general comments. I love First Amendment right to say whatever they want.
Okay, it was a little confusing.
You know. It's not on my part, nobody asked me, so, okay,
Or you weren't at the meeting.
right.
If you couldn't come,
Well, if I was, it would have been a forum, so that would have been the best thing.
or one of us could have come.
Okay, so we have approval of minutes. Not on the page, do you have that? Okay, we do not have any minutes to approve. We do not have a consent agenda, so. We've got the introduction of an ordinance 2024. I need to change that language from four-way to either all-way or three-way. What's your pleasure, Counselor?
That's the ordinance in, that exists in the ordinance now. I didn't change it.
Really?
I just added those roads into the important part of it.
Oh, that's
Can't be-
okay.
it's not gonna be black. I mean, we can go,
Oh, cause we have always stopped Friday.
yeah, I mean, that's,
Got it.
It's fine.
so I just, all I did was take the roads that Mike Campbell gave me and inserted them into the current ordinance.
Oh, that's
But
fine.
I do not believe there are, I mean, this Councilwoman Engler.
There's no place where Bloomfield meets mine. So that's the
Yeah.
part, that's gotta be a typo.
I just took whatever Mike Campion said.
Oh, yeah,
So,
that was the one that
if
but I
typo-
sent you an email saying that's wrong. Or,
I do
or
not
text
believe
you
I
and
have that.
Mike, I sent you guys this thing saying,
Yeah,
that
I
was
just took what
wrong.
Mike, so we can make that change, 100%. I just took what Mike said, put it in.
yeah, I had sent both of you, or at least you.
I don't remember getting it, Mayor.
You know,
Yeah, I don't know.
Hold on, I got Kay's list right here.
Yeah, but whatever it is, I just took,
no, Mike did send that to you.
yeah, as the
He
bounce,
actually
just following the
sent that.
bouncing laws, we
And
had
he
the
did-
parking committee meeting, Mike sent me his list, I took his list, put it in the ordinance, I just used as a form the last time we
Did you
did.
get the list? Cause I sent you Jay's letter and I said, this has the right. Did you get that?
I believe I did, Mayor.
Yeah, see, I was also deleting myself in this work, in that,
So,
in that stupid. building.
so, and then I just took the ordinance I did the last time we did this, right?
Mhm.
And just added took the bold and highlights out for the
So
old
we're-
roads and
so
added
that's
new
fine.
roads.
So the title is fine.
Yeah, I would just, whatever you wanna put in. you
But
put
we need
in.
to fix
If
the
that's
body.
what- And work, our ears working.
It's just the
diligently.
body, the title is fine. Ordinance 2024-24, an ordinance amending chapter 7A traffic schedule to create a four-way stop intersection at Mine Street and Stengel Road, Mine Street and Park Avenue, and
That's-
Broad
that's
Street
it.
and Bloomfield Avenue.
Yeah, just.
That is correct.
Just make the
Bloomfield
change,
needs to
so,
change the park on this.
That's in the body, it's not in the title.
yeah.
Can I have a motion to introduce this ordinance? Is there a second?
Engelhardt will second.
For the record, Councilwoman, do you want to correct the record as to what's in the body of this ordinance?
In the body of the ordinance on the second page at the top, it should say Mine Street and Park, not Mine Street and Bloomfield.
Yeah, and just on the issue of a three-way stop, I do not believe, I'm scanning right now, I do not believe there is a relevant section in that schedule for three-way stops. So, if you look at, I think that is the only part where it fits, I could create a new one if the council wants, I don't know. we should.
Well, they're all freeways,
Yeah.
or you can call them all ways, doesn't matter to me.
Currently, that is the only one that would be appropriate, but I can change that, it doesn't matter to me, I would just need guidance to do that.
Yeah, because
You could introduce-
all the other stops in the borough are four-way stops, there are no three-way stops in the borough. I do not believe, they're all four ways.
Can't we just make it schedule 5C, three-way stop
You
intersection?
could do either way, you could do throughways, or you could do all-way stops as the mayor, I think that
Or
frankly,
all-ways.
all-way is
Always.
better
That makes
because
sense. Do it that
there's a
way.
couple others here that. While they're not, they may be four-way stops, the way the wording here is. Implies that they could be all-way stops. to put that. So, that's scheduled. I mean, I think we should put it now, Mayor, and then I'll just chase it with an ordinance to change that section.
Okay,
It will not substantive.
alright, so it's always stop, alright.
No, leave it, which is what Councilwoman Engelhardt's changes based on the edits that,
Okay,
and then I'll change the title later.
okay, alright, so you have a
Cause
motion
easier,
and a
it's easier to do
second,
it that.
that's fine,
Yeah.
can I have a roll call, please?
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pissarro,
Yes.
Councilman Levitt,
Yes.
Council President Long.
Yes.
Councilman Parker.
Yes.
And Council Vice President Rossetti.
Yes.
Okay, passes and public hearing will be December 9th. Which is also our last meeting of the year. So ordinance 24-25, I do not believe has enough votes to introduce it. So, I am going to ask to have this tabled indefinitely, which means to the end of the year. And, it'll be brought back up next year, after more discussion. Can I have a motion to table indefinitely? Is there a second?
Sorry, second.
Don't all jump at once.
See, we're all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we do have a public hearing, ordinance 2024-23, an ordinance of the Borough of Flemington adopting an amended historic district map. Can I have a motion to open to the public, please?
Or move.
Is there a second?
Gross.
All in favor?
Aye.
This ordinance is now open to the public. Anybody wishing to comment, please come up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments. Seeing none, anybody online?
Nope.
Seeing none, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, can I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2024-23?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please, Carla.
Yep, Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fasara,
Yes.
Councilman Levitt,
Yes.
Council President Long,
Yes.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
and Council Vice President Rossetti.
Under regular agenda number 14, resolution 2024-157, resolution approving the interest waived, the number of sewer units on existing sewer accounts for Skunktown Distillery. Can I have a motion?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Sarah will second.
Yeah, so,
Just wanted more info on.
yeah, so, you know, when you get your water sewer, you, building a new business or whatever it is, you have to file a Form A so that our sewer and water departments know exactly what's, you're gonna be doing, and they bill so accordingly. This prior owner, basically never filled out the Form A. This went on for quite a while. The sewer and water departments finally billed, for, you know, the maximum use this building could have, which was like, you know, a very, very, very high number of units, because there was, no basis of proof to say otherwise. The owner subsequently, the ownership changed of this business. However, it changed, and the new owner came in and provided the Form A and provided proof about exactly what units this business was using, to the satisfaction of our water department and our sewer department, and so consequently, they asked for the forgiveness of all the interest that the prior owner had encumbered on this property. Okay.
Can I do roll call?
Any other discussion or questions? Okay, roll call please.
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fasara,
Yes.
Councilman Levitt,
Yes.
Council President Long,
Yes.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
and Council Vice President Rossetti.
Okay, thank you. We don't have a work session, we're up to public comment session number 2. Anybody wanting to continue your conversation or comments earlier? You got another 3 minutes.
I just want to say thank you for the really generative conversation that we had this morning, for encouraging us to be included in conversations with the planning board, and for starting a conversation that I really hope continues, because we have to be able to talk to each other about our shared visions for this town, and it has to be residents, and it has to be property owners, and it has to be commercial tenants. It has to be everybody. So I really hope we can have civic engagement and really good conversations about what we all want and how we get there. And, you know, to that end, we've only had 9 businesses open this year. 9 businesses. We had 31 businesses open last year. So when we do the data and talk about it, I think we're going to, you know, really have to put our heads together to figure out what are the motivating factors, what are the incentives, what are the unmotivating factors, where do we all find commonality, and how do we plan together to have what we want?
Robin,
So
when is that downtown inventory gonna be done?
it is in progress, and I could present whenever you want me to present.
I mean,
That was actually brought up at the meeting today as well,
Yes.
because even the landlords want that,
Yes,
they wanna know.
we
what-
started working on the data. And the data, I think we should have a conversation, Tony, about all the points that we're collecting, the points of information that we're collecting. But we spent the entire weekend trying to look up and go on site to figure out what is vacant, how many stories are commercial, how many offices has one floor footprint been divided into, you know, what are the impediments to having retail in one building as opposed to another? So we've started this project. Kim Tilly helped me, we worked all weekend, so it's a big project.
Or even if the building is inhabitable as well.
That's
There's-
important
there's
too.
that as well. I mean, and I think the point of it is, it's not this broad brushstroke. It's a lot of detail.
Mhm.
It's just not been done, and I don't understand why of all these years it hasn't been, but it is where we are where we are, right? And we're moving. But the bottom line is that it's also what is possible. Is every building capable of having this, a retail or a this or a that or whatever the case may be? It's just so much more work. that has to be
And
done.
we did, Chris Phelan, who's in the audience, and I talked about, can the chamber help us with some of the data? We've also talked to Mark Zalek about whether there's economic development funds to get a database, which would help, because if we had a particular kind of GIS mapping database, we could get clean data and keep up with it.
We actually talked to the county about that when during the previous bid, there was an offer from Mark's office at the time.
But it's also the churn, because that's what you also have to talk about is the churn. It's not a matter of how many businesses come in, it's not a matter of how many businesses. It's about the churn as well. So how many businesses are actually churning, because that's just as important as how many people are coming in.
And you know, there's data that we know. People don't wanna put in air conditioning systems and new roofs and new elevators in a building that needs it if there's no, you know, no tenant that's willing to pay enough to pay for that kind of improvement. Or pay their taxes. There's so many factors, but I would like you to tell me how you want me to present this.
I know this is
I would say, Jack, until next year, when we have a new council convene.
Okay.
And
Sounds
we'll
good.
maybe
But
do
just
it
keep
even
working
as
on
a work session, Rob,
will.
maybe not even a presentation, but a work session.
Okay.
We'll see.
But just keep working on it, get it
No,
done.
but we need it, I mean, it held this, you know, it held up, you know, consideration on this ordinance to some degree.
And to be
You know,
serious,
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, the plan for the community that exists, and I'm sorry, I'm very tired. And Mr. Pruitt, I believe, was at that meeting with our planning board. Planning board took a lot of heat because we did not fully expand the historic preservation district when we were supposed to. And I live in one of those historic homes. I am absolutely opposed to the concept of this whole town being a historic district. That's not gonna happen. Especially when I hear business owners say things like, how dare you tell me what to do with my property? I feel very much the same way. And I bought a historic home. But if I'm the gentleman sitting behind you, this home was never part of the historic district. So I think that when we're talking like this, about this, our home, I'm gonna tell you, $140,000 investment. And restoring a home. And we played by the rules. And we came here with a vision. We had a vision that has not come to fruition. Of the whole plan, in 2015, 2010, we've been sold, there have been a lot of people that have bought homes in this community. Lovingly restored them, brought them back to life, and we still have nothing. So. Let's be aware of that. The next person that comes to me and says, you know what, I want to modernize my house, will stand behind that resident. It's gonna be bad. Go right ahead, tear out the wall, put a glass wall up, right on Main Street, right on Main. This is ridiculous.
Anything else from the public, Dennis, sorry?
Thank you, Ian.
Okay, so we're on the. No, Tony, you have more comments?
Yeah, I just want to say, I want to thank the borough for all the work it's done, all the work it's about to do in the coming years. I think it's a big challenge based on society's changes, shopping changes, online, high tech. People's time just seem to evaporate. I just want to congratulate the council, everybody up here for the work that they do in these challenging times. Just as a point of perspective, I just think that Flemington has an old blueprint. It's like an old blueprint. Main Street is too narrow, you know, you can look at Stangle, it's a little wider. You know, you're trying to just put the pieces in the jigsaw puzzle. But the border isn't, you know, there's just something wrong with the, you know, with the picture, you know, the framework itself. And that's just a point that I'm gonna make, you know, over the years of being here. And like you know, I tout my end of town, and I'm saying, God, when I first moved into this town with Agway flourishing, you could go down there, you know, and now the only business in insightful distance of my house is a underperforming store, okay, which facilitates itself, you know, with lottery tickets. It's a part-time employment, you know, agency where people hang out and do this. It's just a tremendous amount of things like to look at from the past to the present and just say like Adrian's saying, you know, I'm trying to make an investment in my town. You know, yet I have absentee landlords, you know, owning properties next to me. I have to come here to say, hey, this is going on, this is going on. And it just seems like, you know, it's just not going the right way. And I hope the downtown is going to be the catalyst. But I just don't think, you know, like that blueprint on Main Street. I'm almost thinking like if an architect would just wave his hand on Main Street, get rid of this county building, get rid of, you know, just put an entirely different blueprint.
Give us a river, that's
Huh?
what I want, I want a river.
Give us forever.
Give us a river.
Well, again, you know, over there, you know, the Red Mill River, you know, and all that. So it's a very unique challenge and there's hardship to it. There's no question about it. I've been here, been to meetings, I've been downtown. I try to support local businesses. But again, you're not gonna beat Costco. You're not gonna beat some online shopping. You're not going to do it. It's almost like you have to face the reality, you know? So again, that's my comment, but I thank everybody here for going through the, you know, going through the, whatever it takes to try to make it work. And it's an uphill battle, and I don't think 10 or 15 years from now, anybody has an idea what downtown Flemington, you know, is going to look like. But it's the periphery. And again, I've mentioned this before, and I'm mentioning again, a merger with Raritan Township would make sense, I think, to this county, to this area in general, because it's always push and pull. It's shared services anyway, it's Flemington, Raritan anyway, you know.
They made it clear they didn't want that.
Well, again, maybe not, but maybe not, but again, Princeton Borough has done it. There's a blueprint there. You follow that blueprint, you're gonna save a lot of time and aggravation as far as, you know, how and why and when. But I do think these larger moves have to be made. They have to be made because you've got the old tea house sitting there. You've got, you know, you got a lot of empty, which used to be office rental structure, which are no good to anybody anymore. Just too much. Whether taxes, rehabbing the building, which was mentioned, you know, trying to conform, this and that. It's time to look at a large architectural scale from Main Street. It really is. And I can see that clear as day. And you can go to other areas, you can go to Lambertville, you can go to Somerville, you can go, and they all have that blueprint. You know, Somerville has the train station right there. We got rails leading up to Old Banks, nothing going on there. But if we had light rail here, well, that takes Trenton, that takes the state. And yeah, you get people out here. They have that rail transportation anywhere. And they wouldn't have to worry about, you know, that part of their, you know, lifestyle. So, you know, continue your work. Try to look at the bigger picture. And I thank you for putting up with it. Thank you.
Yeah, anybody else? Right, seeing, payment of bills. Authorizing payment of bills in the amount of $1,624,919.95. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Engelhardt will second.
On, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Councilwoman, Fasara,
Yes.
Councilman Levitt,
Yes.
Council President Long,
Yes.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
Council Vice President Rosetti.
Okay, executive session, we do have an executive session tonight. Topics include, item number 3, litigation cannabis license, and number 4, personnel. Can I have a motion to move into executive session?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Okay, Mayor, sorry, Joe, there will be action.
There will be action afterwards regarding the resolution on the sign. Thank you. Thanks. All in favor?
Wait, you second?
There was a second. Somebody seconded it. Okay. Let's take a 5-minute break. So like just for CD right now.
Okay.
We're now back in open session. Okay. We have resolution 158, granting a one-time waiver from section 2631A1C4 to Millie's Brunch and Coffee located at 144 Main Street in the borough of Flemington to permit a temporary banner during construction. Can I have a motion to approve?
Move.
Is there a second?
Engelhardt will second.
Any discussion?
How we handle normal resolution?
Huh?
So I think yes.
Okay.
No more discussion? The Borough Council intends to resolve the aforementioned ambiguities in the ordinance in the near future. That's so eloquent.
You have, and I wrote it just now. You have to state it with specificity, otherwise, so anyone can challenge it if they want, and the judge will be like, no.
Current ambiguities in the ordinance. Okay. All right,
You ready?
roll call, please.
Councilwoman Engelhardt,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fasara,
Yes.
Councilman Levitt,
Yes.
Council President Long,
Yes.
Councilman Parker,
Yes.
Council Vice President Rosetti.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn? Do
I'll move.
I have a second?
Parker second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We'll have your lucky charms.
You're happy like.
Everybody should have lucky charms.
I will say on the issue, Mayor,